Chapter 1989. The ancient ancestor continent was huge, but at this time, it was in a complete mess. The ancient ancestor religion master was seriously injured, and it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. The entire ancient ancestor religion was like a lamp in the wind, constantly swaying, and could be completely destroyed at any time. When Yi Shiwen and the experts of the Heaven Wasteland Palace rushed into the ancient ancestor continent, it was surprisingly smooth. Their Dao soldier group had been completely stalled by the Dao soldiers of the Heaven Wasteland Palace, and they could not return to help. Moreover, it was almost useless to return to help at this time, because even a mythical figure like the ancient ancestor religion master was about to die. So how could they turn the tide? There was a huge gap between mythical figures and those below the mythical realm. They had already come into contact with the realm of gods, and it was completely unimaginable to those below. This time, the Heaven Wasteland Palace was determined to send two mythical figures to eradicate the ancient ancestor religion in one fell swoop. If the ancient ancestor religion master was guarding the ancient ancestor continent, it would be difficult for even two mythical experts to break into the ancient ancestor continent in a short period of time. But this time, the Heaven Wasteland Hall had lured him out and made him think that it was the same as before, that there was only one legend expert. After he came out, they would completely eliminate him at the most critical moment. Even an ancient force like the Heaven Wasteland Palace, which had existed for countless years, would not easily offend a mythical expert. But once offended, there was only one choice, and that was to completely eradicate this mythical figure. Even the weakest mythical figure could pose a fatal threat to Profound Life Realm and Profound Death Realm experts. If he escaped and secretly attacked those Profound Life Realm and Profound Death Realm experts, then the losses would be really disastrous. At that time, the losses of attacking the entire ancient ancestor continent might not be that great. Everyone rushed to various places in the ancient ancestor continent. The entire ancient ancestor religion had set up their base here, and after generations of management, it had long become abnormally rich. All kinds of natural treasures could be seen everywhere, and they were all cultivated artificially. Usually, these would be great treasures, and Yi Shiwen would take them away one by one. However, Yi Shiwen couldn't care less at this moment. He knew very well that he was snatching food from the Heaven Wasteland Palace. Moreover, he couldn't afford to be discovered by the people of the Heaven Wasteland Palace. Therefore, the only way was to make a fortune before the two legendary figures entered the ancient ancestor continent. If that was the case, then it would truly mean that time waits for no man. Every minute and every second could be the key to his downfall here. He did not dare to take the risk. He took a big stride forward and dashed towards a huge floating palace complex. He instinctively felt that this palace was the richest in the entire ancient ancestor continent. Many people had the same idea as him, and they flew straight towards the hall. However, the defense of the entire main hall was still very strong. All kinds of formations were activated, and a torrent of martial arts swept out. It was very dense. In an instant, many experts of the Heaven Wasteland Hall, who were unable to dodge in time, were struck on the spot and turned into a mist of blood. Originally, the Dao soldier group was supposed to bear the losses and be in charge of attacking. However, at this moment, it was clear that the experts of the Heaven Wasteland Hall could no longer bear it. Many of them even turned back into their original forms of the various races and fled. Whoosh! Suddenly, a spear radiance descended from the sky, piercing through the sky and slamming into the defensive formation of the entire palace complex. Boom! A mushroom cloud rose up and formed a shock wave. In an instant, all the formations were completely annihilated. Those formations that had not been put to use were completely annihilated in an instant. It was the Heaven Wasteland War Immortal. With help and the serious injuries of the ancient ancestor religion leader, he finally had the time to pay attention to the situation here. In the palace complex, countless experts and disciples did not even have time to react, and were all killed on the spot. In the face of a legendary figure, these celestial realm and even profound realm experts could not withstand a single blow. And at this moment, Yi Shiwen suddenly emerged. His figure was like a bolt of lightning, separated from the crowd, and directly rushed into the palace. In an instant, he had already flashed into the palace, which immediately caused a burst of curses from the experts of the Heaven Wasteland Hall behind him. However, there was nothing they could do because they could not catch up with Yi Shiwen's speed. Whoosh! Yi Shiwen took the lead and directly entered the palace. The entire palace was filled with corpses. Many people of the ancient ancestor religion did not even have time to scream or react before they were directly blasted into pieces. They were blown up in the air. It was completely imaginable how terrifying the full blow of the Heaven Wasteland War Immortal was. Even the Abyss Demon Master did not give him such a strong feeling. At that time, the Abyss Demon Master did not really see him as an opponent. He thought that the Abyss Demon Master was just an ant that he could casually attack. But even so, Yi Shiwen was already seriously injured and on the verge of death. He had to recuperate for hundreds of years before he recovered. This heavy injury was engraved in his heart, and there was no other time that could be compared to this time. A battle of this level was simply not something he could participate in. With his current cultivation, he would basically die if he came into contact with it. How would he dare to stop? He immediately rushed in, and did not stop when he saw the piles of corpses. He directly headed towards the deepest part of the palace. An astonishing spiritual aura rushed towards him. It was almost completely solid, and pounced on his face to the extent that he could feel it. He immediately rushed towards the place where the spiritual aura filled the sky. It was an incomparably huge sea of Xian cores. It was endless, and with a glance, it was unknown whether there were tens of millions or hundreds of millions of them. Hundreds of millions of Xian cores, even if each one was not very large, were enough to form an endless sea. I'm afraid I'm going to be rich. Yi Shiwen's eyes immediately lit up. If he could collect all of these Xian cores, it would practically be a matter of time before he stepped into the advanced profound death realm. It was not just a matter of getting rich overnight. This was just a palace. There were originally countless formations operating in the palace, transforming all of these Xian cores into spiritual aura to support the operation of the entire palace's formation. There were definitely many other treasures in this palace. However, Yi Shiwen could not be bothered at this moment. Right now, he needed a large number of Xian cores if he wanted to step into the advanced profound death realm. It was equivalent to someone sending him a pillow when he was about to doze off. Moreover, he was also very clear that a large number of experts from the Heaven Wasteland Palace would soon swarm in. He did not have the time to collect all of them one by one, and could only choose one of them. Thinking of this, he no longer hesitated. The Tianyuan mirror directly flew out from his body, and directly shot out a blood-red light. Wherever it passed, all of the Xian cores would be sucked into the Tianyuan mirror on the spot. With a flash of the blood-red light, tens of thousands of Xian cores were all collected by him. This efficiency could be said to be extremely fast. With a flash of the blood-red light, the endless sea of Xian cores would lose a piece. However, compared to the endless sea of Xian cores, it was still very slow. In other words, it was not fast enough at all. When Yi Shiwen had only collected tens of millions of Xian cores, there was already a burst of noise coming from behind him. Then, two people instantly broke into the palace. One of them was a middle-aged man, while the other was an old man. Both of them were experts from the Heaven Wasteland Palace. Needless to say, the strength of these two people was obviously a level higher than the rest of the people present. How many Xian cores are there? I'm afraid there are hundreds of millions of Xian cores. I'm rich. The old man laughed heartily, and actually somewhat lost his composure. For someone at his level, his state of mind had long been cultivated to an extremely high level. One could well imagine the significance of these hundreds of millions of Xian cores to be able to make him lose his composure. It was not enough to describe such a huge amount of wealth, even if he had to pay a portion of it to the higher-ups. As long as he did not say anything, no one would know how much he had obtained. The majority of it would still fall into his hands. At that time, with the support of these Xian cores, he would be able to get what he wanted and even break into the myth realm. Once he could enter the myth realm, he would be one of the higher-ups of the Heaven Wasteland Palace and would be able to come into contact with the mystery of immortality. He would have the opportunity to attack the legendary Supreme Great Tao. How could his current mediocre status compare? Star Palace old monster, don't be delusional. The Xian cores here are mine, the middle-aged man said coldly. His eyes were also filled with endless fanaticism. Hong Tianlin, don't tell me you still dare to compete with me? The old Star Palace old monster's face immediately turned cold. So what? Hong Tianlin said coldly. His eyes were also filled with hostility. Aren't you afraid of eating too much? There are hundreds of millions of Xian cores here. The Star Palace old monster said mockingly. Even if he could only obtain 1/10 of these hundreds of millions of Xian cores, he would still become rich overnight. Eating too much is better than starving to death. Hong Tianlin looked at the Star Palace old monster and said indifferently, "Who is this kid? Stop." At this time, they seemed to have finally noticed Yi Shiwen's existence and suddenly became furious. They had already regarded the wealth here as their own, and now they saw someone robbing their wealth. How could they not be angry? Chapter 1990. While they were talking, Yi Shiwen had already collected another 5 million Xian pills. However, it was still not enough. How could he have the time to deal with these people? He had already decided that he would have to collect at least 20 million Xian pills before it would be enough. I think you're really courting death. Hong Tianlin's hands tore apart. Golden light filled the sky and swept towards Yi Shiwen as if it could shatter everything. The vast and mighty energy wave shattered everything as it surged towards Yi Shiwen. The terrifying strength of the late profound death stage was undoubtedly displayed at this moment. Yi Shiwen didn't even look at it. He directly opened his palm, and endless golden divinities spread out, forming a golden shield that protected him in it. Rumble! An incomparably loud rumble resounded. Hong Tianlin's attack was actually blocked by Yi Shiwen with a single hand. It did not affect his movement at all. Hong Tianlin, I don't think you're much. You can't even deal with a puny late profound death stage cultivator. I think you're just undeserving of your reputation. Old Star Constellation Monster said mockingly. However, he was secretly a little shocked. Hong Tianlin had fought with him for so many years. How could he not know how strong Hong Tianlin was? Yet, he was actually unable to take down a late profound death stage cultivator. This in itself was not normal. Just you wait and see. In that instant, a vast amount of real yuan erupted from Hong Tianlin's body. His entire body seemed to have expanded by a large margin. An incomparably huge war flag suddenly appeared around him. This war flag looked a little tattered. It was in the shape of a square, and there was blood on it. It was unknown when it had been stained, but it had not dried up yet. Swoosh! All of a sudden, the war flag swept up. Boundless essence chi swept out in all directions. It was also a top-notch profound weapon. I think you're also courting death. Hurry up and scram before I have the time to deal with you guys. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Yi Shiwen said coldly. His entire body surged. A vast and mighty aura shot out from his body, like the Milky Way. It turned into a shocking sword light and directly slashed towards the war flag. Rumble! It was another fierce collision. However, Hong Tianlin's offensive was still unable to do anything to Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen frowned slightly. Hong Tianlin had unleashed his mighty martial power the moment he attacked. Compared to an ordinary advanced profound death stage expert, Hong Tianlin's martial power was much more vigorous. Now that he was unable to free himself, it would be somewhat troublesome for him to deal with these two people. As time passed, more and more people would come. He could only try his best to take as many as he could. He seemed to be able to withstand the attack just now, but in fact he was just relying on his improved Tyrant Golden body to withstand it. If he continued to bombard it like this, he would definitely not be able to continue. Old Star Palace Monster, are you still not going to make a move? Do you want to watch these Xian cores be taken away by him? We can discuss how to split it, but we can't let outsiders take it away. Don't you think so? At this time, Hong Tianlin also realized that Yi Shiwen wasn't easy to deal with. So, he quickly called the Star Palace Old Monster. then you shall see what I can do." Old Star Palace monster snorted coldly, but he didn't refuse to make a move. His voice rang out, causing ripples in the surroundings. His body flew out, and boundless star power started to gather towards him. A universe was formed in an instant. He was the only true god in this universe. He used his realm right from the start, and it swept downwards. "Damn it, I think you guys won't give up until you see the end of the road," Yi Shiwen shouted loudly. He immediately stopped controlling the Tianyuan mirror and turned around. Boom! His aura suddenly swept out with a loud bang. With the addition of the 5 emperors, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, the power of these 5 elements condensed around his body and formed the 5 emperors to protect his body. "I don't think I can stop if I don't get rid of you first." He let out a loud roar and rushed towards the crushing universe. His 5 fingers clenched into a fist, which turned into a golden universe, and directly smashed over. Bang! The Star Palace Old Monster's universe instantly collapsed on the spot. It couldn't withstand Yi Shiwen's full strength punch at all. "Damn, brat. How dare you break my domain?" The Star Palace Old Monster's originally leisurely attitude could no longer be maintained. He immediately flew into a rage. His domain was actually broken by Yi Shiwen. He directly spread out his big hand and directly grabbed towards Yi Shiwen as if he was grabbing a star. His power also rose steadily. In one breath, it actually soared to the peak of the late profound death realm. This was where his true strength lay. What a Star Palace Old Monster. He actually concealed so much power. Fortunately, this kid found out. Otherwise, I would have suffered a great loss if we fought. Hong Tianlin's eyes were filled with shock and doubt. What a good Star Palace Old Monster. He and the old Star Palace monster had been fighting and competing for many years. But he had never expected that the old Star Palace monster had actually hidden such a huge amount of power and didn't reveal it. Even he could only sigh with emotion. What a deep scheme. Fortunately, it was discovered by this kid. "Brat, I don't care what you were relying on. Today, you will die without a doubt." The Star Palace Old Monster was in a rage because he was forced by Yi Shiwen. The peak of the late profound death realm. Unless he encountered someone at the peak of the profound death realm, otherwise he could sweep across everything. Above his head, a mighty torrent appeared. Countless star power was emitted once again, and directly slammed down in Yi Shiwen's direction. "So annoying!" Yi Shiwen shouted. Behind him, an incomparably vast power swept out. A majestic phantom formed, and quickly integrated into Yi Shiwen's body. Boom! 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 His aura was soaring at an astonishing speed. His originally shocking aura had risen by several realms. It surpassed heaven and earth, surpassed time, and was incomparably terrifying. Boom! Yi Shiwen directly blasted a punch towards the palm of the Star Palace Old Monster. Bang! An incomparably loud collision sound was heard. A terrifying power suddenly blasted into the palm of the Star Palace Old Monster through Yi Shiwen's fist. Yi Shiwen's physical body was comparable to a top-notch profound weapon. However, although the Star Palace Old Monster's physical body was tyrannical and his cultivation was high, he still couldn't be compared to Yi Shiwen's abnormal, gilded tyrant form. Ah! The Star Palace Old Monster let out a blood-curdling shriek as his entire arm exploded on the spot. He immediately screamed, "You're only SSO. How dare you clamor in front of me? I think you're really tired of living," Yi Shiwen said coldly. He didn't have a good impression of these two people at all. The Star Palace Old Monster's eyes were filled with horror. He continuously retreated. He didn't expect to be blown up by Yi Shiwen with a single blow. With the addition of the 5 emperors and the integration of the Fist Principle Incarnation, Yi Shiwen's strength had almost climbed to the peak. It was especially terrifying. Yi Shiwen didn't stop. He directly leaped up and chased after the Star Palace Old Monster. Hong Tianlin, what are you waiting for? Let's join forces and kill this guy. We'll split these Xian cores in half. The Star Palace Old Monster hurriedly shouted. Originally, he had never thought of sharing the Xian cores with Hong Tianlin. Why? He had such confidence. So what if he monopolized the Xian cores? Once he reached the peak of the profound death realm with these Xian cores, he would be able to truly enter the upper echelons of the Heaven Wasteland Palace. They were only one realm apart, but the difference in status was huge. At that time, who could do anything to him? However, there was no other way now. Yi Shiwen's terror had far exceeded his expectations. It was much worse than the worst situation he had imagined. Hong Tianlin didn't hesitate. The battle flag in his hand waved and pressed down on Yi Shiwen. He was also clear about the principle of interdependence. Yi Shiwen was unbelievably ferocious. He had to join forces to suppress him. Under such circumstances, the two experts each had their own ulterior motives. However, they didn't dare to hesitate, and both attacked Yi Shiwen. At this moment, Yi Shiwen didn't hold back anymore. He only sneered. "Just the two of you? You want to attack me? You really don't know what's good for you. I've already given you a chance to leave just now. Unfortunately, people are tempted by wealth. You've really run out of luck. Forget it. So what if I kill two more profound death realm experts?" At this moment, he was like an emperor in the human world with the help of the 5 emperors. In an instant, he blasted out the power of the 5 elements in succession and repelled the attacks from the 2 experts. He waved his hands, and a picture scroll of the power of yin and yang appeared. It unfurled and shook violently. A wave of power of life and death swept out on the spot. It was mixed with the talisman of life and death and swept towards Hong Tianlin majestically. Hong Tianlin waved the battle flag and faced the attack head-on. He forcefully resisted the power of life and death. Bang! He could only feel a shocking power spreading in his hand. It caused his arm to go completely numb. He was extremely shocked. This seemingly harmless guy had become so terrifying all of a sudden. "I think you're courting death." At this moment, the Star Palace old monster blasted out countless power of the stars. It intertwined into a huge dragon and opened its mouth to swallow Yi Shiwen. Boom! The huge dragon had just swallowed Yi Shiwen when it heard a deafening roar. The huge dragon exploded on the spot. Majestic divinity swept out and swept in all directions like monstrous waves. Each wave was higher than the previous one. Yi Shiwen was the emperor in the human world standing on the top of the waves. He was so mighty that one couldn't look at him directly. Chapter 1991. I think the two of you are really tired of living. Yi Shiwen held the yin-yang life and death diagram in his hand like a judge of life and death. A power of life and death directly swept out from his yin-yang life and death diagram. How is this possible? What kind of instrument is this? The Star Palace old monster retreated again and again, not daring to take it head-on. How could he not recognize the power of life and death of yin and yang? It was just that even with his cultivation, as long as he did not break into the legendary realm, it was impossible to achieve the level of balance between yin and yang. He could only use the power of life and death separately. Even if he managed to fuse them, the power was far less than when he used them separately. Therefore, very few people could use the power of life and death of yin and yang as an attack method. Even so, the power was quite amazing. With his means and vision, how could he not see that this was not Yi Shiwen's own method, but the instrument in his hand? What was that thing? It was so powerful. You think you can do it? Yi Shiwen moved as fast as lightning. He waved his hand, and suddenly several power of life and death directly swept out. From top to bottom, it completely sealed the Star Palace old monster. Rumble! He could not dodge all of them. He could only choose to take one of them head-on. Bang! The Star Palace old monster was directly swept by the saber. Then his remaining arm screamed on the spot and was swept away. The Star Palace old monster was suddenly extremely shocked. The power of life and death of yin and yang was actually so powerful. No wonder Hong Tianlin even suffered some losses when he used a top-notch Xian weapon to take it head-on. 5 emperors descending. Yi Shiwen did not give him any chance. He directly shot out a powerful martial arts figure on the spot. It was like 5 mountains crushing towards the Star Palace old monster. Bang! The Star Palace old monster could not dodge and was directly hit. He spat out a mouthful of blood, all of which was his blood essence. Above his head, countless defenses were smashed to smithereens. He struggled to hold on. His head was already densely covered in sweat. Hong Tianlin, why are you not taking action? Don't you understand the principle of being interdependent? This guy is ruthless. If I die, don't think of living. He roared unceasingly. The pressure that Yi Shiwen had given him was too great. Yi Shiwen had almost single-handedly defeated him, and he had no strength to fight back. At this moment, he suddenly thought of something. Martial art avatar. This martial art avatar itself was unusual. Although they were considered to be in the upper echelons of the Heaven Wasteland Hall, they had never seen a martial art avatar before. It was a martial art avatar that only peerless geniuses could cultivate. However, there were only a handful of people in the Heaven Wasteland Hall, especially at his age, who had successfully cultivated a martial arts embodiment. Although he had not seen all of them, he had heard of them. However, he had never heard of such a battle technique. On the contrary, he was very similar to the legendary Yi Shiwen. After he had slaughtered hundreds of mysterious realm experts of the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Union, he had become famous. Everything about him had become the object of everyone's research. His 5 emperors were too obvious. Controlling the power of the 5 elements, which was a high-level power of law, wasn't something that ordinary people could do. Hong Tianlin, quick. This guy is Yi Shiwen. He's the Yi Shiwen that we want to capture, shouted the Star Palace master hurriedly. Hong Tianlin was not a fool. Almost immediately, he thought of the same thing as the Star Palace master. A glint and a sliver of ecstasy immediately flashed across his eyes. Today seemed to be his lucky day. Due to Yi Shiwen's arrogance, the Heaven Desolate Palace had offered a sky-high bounty to capture him. This reward was not only for the outside, but also for the inside. If he could capture Yi Shiwen, even if he continued to hold on until the others arrived, Yi Shiwen would not be able to escape. Even if he was not the one who captured Yi Shiwen today, he would still be the chief merit. When that time came, wouldn't he be able to get what he wanted? What he needed to do now was to stall for time. When they arrived, a large number of people were already rushing over. It was just that they were one step ahead. Yi Shiwen took a deep look at the two of them and frowned slightly. This was not good. If there had been no fight earlier, it would not have mattered. At most, it would have been an internal battle between the experts of the Heaven Wasteland Hall. However, his identity had been seen through. If others were to find out, he was afraid that he would really face an endless pursuit. Most importantly, there were still 2 legend realm experts of the Heaven Wasteland Hall eyeing him covetously. How could he dare to relax at all? If you didn't know, you might still be able to live. Unfortunately, you all know. Without any hesitation, Yi Shiwen opened his mouth and suddenly sucked in a breath. A large number of Xian cores that filled the sky were directly swallowed by him. Boom! His martial power and martial arts incarnation that had originally consumed a lot were completely replenished in an instant. His combat power was once again restored to the peak. His strength had climbed to an extremely terrifying level. Yi Shiwen, it's not too late if you surrender now. Don't make a mistake. There are so many of us here. It's impossible for you to escape. The Star Palace old monster hurriedly shouted. When he made such a guess, he was also extremely shocked. He had never expected that Yi Shiwen would dare to sneak into their midst and even dare to take advantage of the chaos to plunder. Audacious was simply indescribable. How bold must one be to do something like this? However, he also had to admit that this was indeed a very good idea. The most dangerous place was the safest place. If he had not recognized Yi Shiwen's fighting style, he would probably not have thought that Yi Shiwen had actually hidden among them. Boom! The suppressed Star Palace old monster was suddenly shocked. Originally, he was also secretly accumulating strength in order to break the suppression of Yi Shiwen's 5 Emperor descent in one fell swoop. Who would have thought that Yi Shiwen's strength would actually soar after absorbing a mouthful of Xian cores? All of the strength that he had accumulated was instantly disintegrated. Oh no! How could this be? Damn it, go to hell! Hong Tianlin shouted loudly. Then, countless Jinyuans suddenly swept out and swept towards Yi Shiwen in coordination with the battle flag. Bang! This war flag was blocked by Yi Shiwen with his bare hands. This top-notch Xian tool was nothing to Yi Shiwen. It could not affect him at all. It's useless. The gap between the two of you and me is too big. You have already missed the best chance to survive. Yi Shiwen said faintly. Bang! Yi Shiwen suddenly stepped on the ground. A monstrous force passed through the Five Emperor descent and fell on the Star Palace Old Monster. Puff! The Star Palace Old Monster spat out a mouthful of blood. He could only feel his vision turning black. He could not hold on at all. However, there was no way for him to escape. He could not move at all. He was completely suppressed by Yi Shiwen. I want to resist. Break for me, he shouted loudly. The blood essence in his body began to burn crazily. If this continued, his strength would be greatly reduced even if he could escape. However, he could not care so much at this moment. At this moment, he finally understood why Elder Xian Ting, whom he had ridiculed previously, had died in the hands of a junior in the profound death realm. It was not because he was too useless. Instead, it was because this guy was too terrifying. He was simply not human. You want to make a comeback? Dream on? Yi Shiwen was cold and ruthless. Ever since they knew his identity, he had been determined to kill them. Clang! In the sky, a shocking sword chi began to condense. It was vast and mighty like the Yellow River. It condensed into a long sword principal river and directly slashed towards the Star Palace Old Monster. Bang! The Star Palace Old Monster did not have time to react. In an instant, his body was pierced by the long sword. He was ruthlessly nailed to the ground. After twitching twice, he suddenly stopped moving. Not good. This guy is too cruel. Hong Tianlin saw this scene and was simply scared out of his wits. He did not expect that the Star Palace Old Monster would be so easily killed by Yi Shiwen. It was simply ridiculously powerful. It was simply too terrifying. Hong Tianlin quickly rolled up the battle flag. He then transformed into a streamer of light and flew out of the main hall. He wanted to escape. He didn't care about catching Yi Shiwen at this time. He wanted to save his own life first. At that time, he would definitely be the first meritorious service. However, if he could not survive, it would be really miserable. You want to leave? Stay. Yi Shiwen was supported by the Five Emperors. The wind and thunder wings behind him instantly unfolded and flapped. Whoosh! His figure directly tore through the void. In an instant, he caught up with Hong Tianlin, who had escaped first, and flew directly above him. Impossible! Hong Tianlin was almost scared to death. He did not expect Yi Shiwen to be so cruel. He had caught up with him in an instant. This speed was simply too fast to scare people to death. However, he saw Yi Shiwen flying in the air and ruthlessly kicked down. Bang! As expected, Hong Tianlin was directly kicked. His entire body was like a cannonball as he fell to the ground, creating a huge crater. Who knew how many bones in his body were broken, but he was still trying to escape. Clang! In the sky, the sword chi rotated rapidly. It grew bigger and bigger. After that, it directly slashed down and nailed Hong Tianlin to the ground. His divine soul was instantly destroyed. He slowly twitched. He only felt that the strength of his whole body was rapidly draining. He clearly saw that at this time, more than a dozen shadows had already appeared at the entrance of the hall. They were the reinforcements that he had been expecting. However, it was a pity that they had come too late. He opened his mouth. However, he did not say anything. He died completely. Chapter 1992. Those who had just arrived were a little dumbfounded at this moment. Although it was common for them to fight over wealth, it was the first time they had witnessed such a massacre. In other words, even if they wanted to kill each other, they would do it in a secluded place. They had never seen such an open and above-board massacre. Profound death stage experts were the core strength of any faction. Without a reasonable reason, they would definitely not be allowed to kill each other for no reason. However, what had they just witnessed? Two late profound death stage experts had died in a single breath. Furthermore, they did not die at the hands of their enemies. Instead, they died at the hands of their own people. Once this news spread, one could well imagine what kind of commotion it would cause. Was this person crazy? Even if it was for the sake of fighting over Xian cores, he should not be so brutal. Everyone felt as if their brains had crashed. For a moment, they were unable to react. Yi Xuan did not care about what they were thinking. After plundering all the wealth from the two of them, he began to control the Tianyuan mirror and began to continuously collect those Xian cores. In the blink of an eye, over 1 million Xian cores had entered his bag. At this moment, those people finally reacted. This endless sea of Xian cores was the root cause of such an intense conflict between the three of them. The endless sea of Xian cores was an incomparably huge amount of wealth, causing their eyes to turn red. However, when they saw the two corpses on the ground that had yet to cool down, they immediately calmed down. What a joke! If not for the two corpses, they might have the guts to fight with Yi Xuan. As the saying goes, the law does not punish the masses. Moreover, they were disciples of the same sect. It was not to the extent of being killed. However, when they saw the two corpses that had yet to cool down, they immediately felt a chill run down their spines and came to their senses. What a joke! This person was serious. Quite a number of people were secretly cursing this fellow, who wanted to hog everything for himself. He could be so arrogant now. Once he was discovered by the higher-ups, he would only be waiting for death. The crime of killing two late, profound death stage experts was not something that could be easily forgotten. Yi Xuan shot a glance at them. How could he not know what these people were thinking? If he was really a member of the Heaven Wasteland Palace, he would probably be thinking of ways to silence them. Since he had already killed two of them, it did not matter if he killed a little more. However, he was not an expert of the Heaven Wasteland Hall. At this moment, he did not have the time to care about them. The right thing to do was to quickly collect all the Xian cores and leave. These people saw that Yi Xuan didn't intend to kill them, so they reluctantly felt relieved. They were also afraid that Yi Xuan would suddenly go crazy and kill them. After experiencing the initial jealousy, they also began to have such worries. They were afraid that Yi Xuan would kill them to silence them. At that time, he could push the blame and say that he was killed by the people of the ancient ancestor religion. They did not need to think too much about it. If it was them, they would definitely do the same. After all, being punished by the higher-ups of the Heaven Wasteland Hall was much more terrifying than killing someone. But in any case, they didn't dare to approach him and could only stare at him as he collected the ocean of Xian dawn little by little. Kill! 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 Loud battle cries could be heard coming from the outside. It was like a sound wave sweeping in circles. Yi Xuan's face changed. This was the encirclement of the Dao soldier group. So fast. The speed of the ancient ancestor religion's defeat was faster than he thought. It seemed that there was not much time left for him. But up until now, he had only managed to take away less than half of the Xian cores, which amounted to 50 million Xian cores. For him, this was indeed a huge amount of wealth. But that was only if he did not have hundreds of millions of Xian cores to compare. He simply opened the yin-yang life and death diagram and Tianyuan mirror and kept collecting the Xian cores. The experts of the Heaven Wasteland Hall outside the hall were all dumbstruck. Their eyes were glued to the Xian cores, and they nearly drooled. Finally, the shouts of kill rushed into the palace, and Yi Xuan finally plundered these hundreds of millions of Xian dawn cleanly. The experts of the Heaven Wasteland Hall outside the hall were already gnashing their teeth. They had never seen someone who could eat to such an extent. They cursed in their hearts. When the time comes, I will make you spit it out with interest. At this time, after Yi Xuan collected all the Xian cores, he did not dare to stay any longer. Although this wealth was only a drop in the ocean compared to the wealth that the ancient ancestor religion had accumulated over hundreds of millions of years, it was already a lot for him. But to him, it was already a lot. To him, it was not an exaggeration to say that he had become rich overnight. Although he was still a little unwilling, he also knew that he could not continue to be greedy, otherwise he would lose his life. Previously, didn't Hong Tianlin and Xing Chun Daoren lose their lives because they were too greedy and did not understand the situation? It completely infuriated him, forcing him to kill them. Swish! He simply tore the space apart, and with a flash, he directly went out of the palace. The space formation of the palace here had already been completely destroyed by that blow. Otherwise, he would not be able to cross the space and escape directly. When he directly came out, he saw that the outcome of the entire battlefield seemed to have been decided. With the death of their leader, the entire situation of the ancient ancestor religion had become completely one-sided. The Tao soldiers had already retreated into the depths of the ancient ancestor continent to carry out their final resistance. And in the sky, the Tao soldiers of the Heaven Wasteland Hall and the experts from all sides were everywhere. At the highest point, there was an incomparably huge corpse floating. It was the leader of the ancient ancestor religion. There was no longer any breath of life. Although the laws around the body were still very vigorous and vivid, Yi Shiwen could see that the leader was indeed dead. The Heaven Wasteland War Immortal was trying to shatter the laws on the leader of the ancient ancestor religion, and then take him into his pocket. Even if it was just the physical body of a person who had cultivated to the myth realm, it was still a supreme treasure. Some wretched techniques could even be used to refine such existences into puppets. Having a god myth puppet would be an invaluable asset to anyone. And the other myth realm figure was not here. He seemed to have left, but it was also reasonable. Now that the ancient ancestor religion had lost, there was no need for two myth realm figures to hold the fort. That would be too much of a waste of these myth realm talents. Suddenly, Yimo's voice suddenly appeared in his mind. Yi Shiwen, quietly go over and think of a way to seize the body of the leader of the ancient ancestor religion. Such a body is enough to refine into a demon puppet, and it can even exert the strength it had when it was alive. In this case, you will have an additional layer of protection. At least when I can't act now, it can protect you. I can't even escape, Yi Shiwen said, somewhat speechless. Daring to seize the body of a myth realm expert under the eyes of the myth realm expert. Just thinking about it was very crazy. But if he could really seize the body, then he naturally knew the benefits without Yimo saying it. Every race and every sect more or less had this kind of puppet refining technique, and the one that Yimo imparted was without a doubt the most advanced one. It could even exert the strength it had before it was born, which was very terrifying. Because it was very difficult for an ordinary puppet to exert the strength it had before it was born. It was nothing more than winning by quantity. So after you get close, immediately make an escape formation, and after you succeed, immediately escape. Yimo said, but even so, I can't escape at all. Yi Shiwen was very clear about how terrifying a myth realm expert was. He was afraid that he would be directly grabbed to death on the spot before he could tear the space apart. If someone else said this to him, he was afraid that he would not even give a damn. But this idea was naturally different from Yimo's. He was waiting for Yimo's explanation. I know, but if you want to make a move, I can do it too. What? You can do it? Don't tell me you can already control the body of the Lord of Darkness? Yi Shiwen said in surprise. If that was the case, then he had nothing to be afraid of. The body of the Lord of Darkness was also at the level of a god. Even after control, he could only exert the strength of the body, which was far superior to the ordinary myth realm experts. It was more than enough to protect him. Not yet. I haven't completely subdued that spirit, but I can forcefully activate it at the critical moment. Although it is only for a moment, it is enough for you to escape, Yimo said with certainty. After getting Yimo's affirmation, Yi Shiwen was immediately overjoyed. Since Yimo said so, then it must be possible. This time, the original pity in his heart was suddenly swept away. If he could snatch the body of the ancient ancestor sect leader, wouldn't it be much better than anything else? Even the hundreds of millions of Xian pills were not as precious as the body of the ancient ancestor sect leader. Thinking of this, he suddenly became a little crazy. He also knew that what Yimo said might not be completely realized, but wealth came from danger. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. He decided to do it and fight. He flew straight to the top. Fortunately, the entire sky had turned into a battlefield. It was a mess, and everyone's aura was in complete disorder. It was unknown how many cracks had appeared in the space. So, no one noticed that Yi Shiwen had flown up. And most importantly, probably no one would have thought that there would be someone who dared to snatch food from the mouth of a tiger from the hands of a myth realm expert like the Heaven Wasteland War Immortal. that was simply courting death, and it was not a quick enough death. And this just happened to give Yi Shiwen an opportunity. Chapter 1993. It was precisely because no one had ever thought that someone would dare to snatch food from the tiger's mouth that even war god Heaven Wasteland did not pay too much attention to it. He only continued to devote himself to smashing these vigorous laws. These laws were almost independently formed and protected him within. If he could not smash them, even war god Heaven Wasteland would not be able to use the spatial laws to carry away this corpse. Boom! 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 Under war god Heaven Wasteland's attack, these laws that were already on the verge of collapse rapidly collapsed. The war god Heaven Wasteland, who was so focused, simply did not notice that someone had already taken advantage of the spatial cracks to hide in the spatial fragments and had actually arrived nearby. Even in the spatial fragments, Yi Shiwen could feel the torrents brought about by the collision sweeping over. These torrents were enough to sweep anyone to death. It would be very strenuous for him unless he activated the state of 5 emperors. However, if he were to activate the state of 5 emperors now, he would be courting death. Right now, he could not wait to keep a low profile and conceal his aura. It was impossible for the restraining breath technique to completely conceal the aura of 5 emperors. Doing so would be tantamount to courting death. Therefore, he could only quietly wait while rapidly arranging an escape formation within this spatial crack. Although he could casually tear apart space, the space he did so casually could only be used for short-distance travel. He could not travel any further, and could only rely on a formation that he had buried beforehand. If he were to casually tear apart space, war god Heaven Wasteland would immediately find him and kill him on the spot. Even if he were to arrange such a formation, it might not necessarily be safe. War god Heaven Wasteland could discover even a bit of the aura of space. Therefore, at this time, he could only hope that Yimo would be able to buy him some time to escape. Needless to say, there was naturally no need to mention the dangers involved. A single wrong step could cost him his life. However, at this time, he could no longer care so much. The opponents he had offended were becoming more and more powerful, and he had no choice but to forcefully take action. Since his cultivation could not catch up in a short time, he could only use some unorthodox methods. Thinking of this, he simply could not care so much anymore. Quietly lying in ambush within the spatial fragments, like an experienced hunter, he was only waiting for the most crucial moment to make the crucial move. Boom! 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 The violent collision sound continued. Suddenly, the world seemed to tremble violently. After that, the space that had been turned into fragments gradually recovered, because this broken space also blocked Yi Shiwen's aura from being discovered. If he waited until it was reconnected, it would not take long for him to be discovered. Just as Yi Shiwen began to feel anxious, the ancient ancestor church master's law finally shattered completely. The war god of Heaven Wasteland revealed a sneer on his face. He had finally killed his old rival who had been entangled with him for thousands of years. Everything of his had fallen into his hands. He had indeed not wasted the huge price he had paid to invite external help this time. After he exterminated the ancient ancestor religion, wouldn't he be able to rise to a higher level by relying on his contributions? Thinking of this, he could not help but feel a little proud. Suddenly, a crimson light shot out from the void, accompanied by the power of yin and yang, life and death, and swept towards the corpse of the ancient ancestor sect master. Immediately, he reacted and flew into a rage. Who is this scoundrel? He was instantly furious. His dignity had been challenged. Someone actually dared to challenge his dignity and wanted to snatch away the fruit of his victory under his nose. He was simply going crazy. Before he could react, the crimson light mixed with the power of yin and yang, life and death, had already shrouded the corpse of the ancient ancestor sect master. A wave of spatial fluctuations flashed past. This was a sign that the corpse of the ancient ancestor sect master was going to be taken directly. "You're courting death." He was about to go crazy with anger. A spear appeared in his hand, and then his divine thoughts swept out, instantly locking on to Yi Shiwen's direction. With a bang, the spear was like a mighty river, cutting through the river of time, welcoming the eternal blow. Whoosh! The spear swept down, and Yi Shiwen suddenly felt a shocking sharpness had locked onto him. He only had one feeling, and that was that his head would explode. He had a feeling that his head would explode. He had not been hit yet, but he already had such a terrifying feeling. Yimo, attack! He gritted his teeth, stabilized this feeling, and then roared. At the same time, he rapidly formed a series of complicated hand seals, and the space formation in front of him also began to rumble and operate. A crazy power was operating within it. Boom! An incomparably loud roar sounded. At that critical moment, a demonic claw descended from the sky. There was not a bit of demonic aura, and there was not even any fluctuation. It was just a very ordinary demonic claw. It shuttled through the void, and then met the spear head-on. The terrifying power on the spear violently exploded in his hand, and a boundless energy storm swept out wildly. However, all of it was blocked by the demonic claw on the spot, and not even the slightest ripple could be set off. With a sudden claw, all of it turned into nothingness. What is this? War Immortal Heaven Wasteland was stunned. Perhaps he had never thought that he would be stopped by someone. He had clearly used his divine thoughts to scan a weak existence, and at most a profound death realm expert. How could there be such a powerful and terrifying demon race joining in? How could he not know about the demon race? They had produced several sovereign emperors, countless demon gods, and were a powerful race that had been extremely glorious. It was just that he did not know that there was such a powerful demon race among the current demon race. It was most terrifying that he could actually use his physical body to receive an attack that contained his anger. He was very clear that if an ordinary legend realm expert dared to receive this attack with their hands, they would be waiting for their hands and bodies to be directly smashed to pieces. Even a race that excelled in physical strength would not dare to receive such an attack. Could it be the Abyss Demon Lord? A name flashed in his mind. This legend realm expert of the demon race had risen like a comet in their circle in recent years. No, it should be said that he had revived. The Abyss Demon Lord had already made a name for himself a long time ago, and this was even recorded in the ancient books of their Heaven Wasteland Palace. Later on, it was said that he had been sealed, and through some unknown method he had survived until now. He then directly broke into the mysterious world and fought with their palace master. Even their palace master was slightly inferior to him. According to what their hall master had said, the Abyssal Demon Lord was probably about to take that legendary final step. The only truly unrivaled person who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him was probably the leader of the Divine Union. If the Abyss Demon Lord had really made a move, then everything would be huge. Currently, the Abyss Demon Lord had led a considerable portion of the demon race and established himself as a king. He had broken away from the control of the demon world and was attempting to control the ancient demon realm. He wanted to transform it into a new demon realm and then become the realm master of the demon realm. He would then rely on the supreme destiny of the entire world to achieve the supreme demon Lord Tao. This matter was not a secret, but many people did not dare to do it even though they had thought of it. There were too many secrets in the ancient demon realm, and it involved countless ancient inheritances. No one dared to try it. Moreover, an ordinary world would not be able to withstand the huge destiny of an emperor. Worlds that were similar to the ancient demon realm, such as the Dragon Island and the ancient Phoenix realm, were even more powerful and terrifying. Therefore, many people thought that the Abyss Demon Lord was simply crazy. Who would have thought that he would actually succeed? At least, he had beaten the human race in the ancient demon realm to the point where they could not retaliate, and even destroyed their royal court. He had occupied a lot of the human race's land and successfully established a foothold in the ancient demon realm. It was even said that he had obtained the support of some big shots from the demon world. The success of the Abyss Demon Lord had also made many people start to have different ideas. The success of the Abyss Demon Lord was a very good example for them. Even the Heaven Wasteland Palace was one of them. The temptation of conquering the ancient demon realm and obtaining the supreme inheritance was too great, and they could not resist it. After that, the higher-ups of the Heaven Wasteland Palace had long wanted to go on an expedition to the ancient demon realm. And Yi Shiwen was just an excuse for their expedition. Without him, it would not affect their expedition to the ancient demon realm. Their main goal was still the demon race. As for the human race, it was just a matter of convenience to exterminate them. As a race that did not even have a mysterious realm expert, how could they resist the army of the Heaven Wasteland Palace? As for the human race in the mysterious realm, they did not even care about them. They did not even have a myth realm, and they still wanted to overturn the heavens? Countless possibilities flashed in his mind. But at this moment, the body of the ancient ancestor sect master, who was originally in front of him, had been completely absorbed by the blood light. "Damn it, you want to leave?" He immediately roared angrily and attacked with his spear again. The spear light swept out and directly swept towards the spatial fragment that Yi Shiwen was hiding in. Boom! A small mushroom cloud rose up, and the entire spatial fragment had completely turned into powder. But at this moment, Yi Shiwen had already disappeared. At that critical moment, he finally hid in the formation and was transported to a distant place in the blink of an eye. Roar! The Heaven Wasteland War Immortal let out an angry roar. He was simply going crazy. Under his own eyes, his greatest spoils of war had been snatched away, which was equivalent to giving him a big slap in the face. His furious roar reverberated throughout the entire cosmos into the distance. Chapter 1994. Whoosh! When Yi Shiwen reappeared, he was already in a faraway space. At a glance, it was a forest. He did not know where he had appeared. Under such circumstances, he could only arrange a non-directional transmission. He could not help but heave a sigh of relief. He had finally escaped the pursuit. The situation just now was too dangerous. If he had been one step slower, he would have died in the hands of Heaven Wasteland War Immortal. Yimo would not have been able to block the next wave of attacks for him. He had already swept into the Tianyuan mirror. Yimo, who had originally occupied more than half of the physical body, was completely defeated after blocking the attack just now. He had only occupied 20% of the physical body of the two. It could almost be said that the control of the physical body had been seized by the original spirit. If it were not for the combined suppression of the word seal and the ancient divine scripture, the original spirit that had controlled most of the physical body would have risen and created chaos. By that time, the entire Tianyuan mirror would have been destroyed. The thought of a deity-level physical body turning into a corpse and creating chaos was incomparably terrifying. Moreover, in this kind of battle for the physical body, the party with a greater advantage would constantly be magnified. The party that was at a disadvantage would only become more and more difficult to resist. Initially, he had already gained an advantage, but now it had completely turned into nothingness. If he wanted to control the physical body of the Lord of Darkness again, who knew how long it would take for him to succeed? Hence, he had directly delayed the process by a long time. In order to obtain the physical body of the ancient ancestor religion master, the price he had paid could not be said to be small. Originally, many of the plans that he had made based on Yi Mo's ability to control the physical body could not be used at all. However, no matter how huge the price was, the result was ultimately good. Although the process was a little thrilling in general, it was still worth it. Yi Shiwen, I will now teach you a set of evil devil puppet great technique. This set of great technique used to belong to a supreme existence of the devil race. Later, it fell into the hands of my master. Now, I will teach you. Once you refine it, you'll gain a considerable amount of battle intelligence. The higher you refine it, the higher your battle intelligence will be. You'll even be able to unleash the full power of your fighting prowess before you were born. You'll have an incredibly powerful bodyguard. I won't be able to spare any time to pay attention to you for a long period of time. I can only focus on refining the body of the Lord of Darkness. Therefore, I won't be able to help you with anything. You'll have to rely on yourself. If a myth realm expert intervenes, they'll be able to protect you. Yi Shiwen nodded. He understood very well that this was the price he had to pay in order to fight for this body. There was no free lunch in the world. One had to pay the price. However, Although this ancient ancestor sect leader is dead, he was after all a figure at the 5th level of Pawang realm. For your current state, it's still impossible to refine him completely. Yimo said. Yishuan nodded. The so-called legend realm was just a term used by people who didn't understand it. Because of their achievements and legends, they were like legends among legends. That was why it was called the legend realm. The true name of the god myth level was the powwow level. What was powwow? It meant that one could pierce through all falsehoods and see the true nature of life itself. Only by going through that process could one truly transcend everything and reach the legendary level of being truly unkillable. The Pawang realm was also divided into 9 realms, 9 heavens. And above the 9 heavens of the Pawang realm was the realm of the real legendary gods. That was another realm. The 5th level of the Pawang realm could almost be considered as a mid-level expert in the Pawang realm. Such an expert was very rare. It was no wonder that the ancient ancestor sect was able to resist a colossus like the Heaven Wasteland Palace for countless years. Indeed, they had a special foundation. In that case, the Heaven Wasteland War God was probably at the 5th level of the Pawang realm or above. Furthermore, the existence that seriously injured the ancient ancestor sect leader the moment he came out was probably not lower than this realm. The 2 legendary figures that the Heaven Wasteland Palace had casually grabbed were already so powerful. This gave Yishuan a great deal of pressure. Compared to such a colossus that had existed for God knows how many powerful existences at the Pawang realm there were. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to maintain the expansion of the Heaven Wasteland Palace for countless years without declining. There was also the expeditionary army of the Heaven Wasteland Palace. He didn't know how many experts there were, but at this time he couldn't care so much. What he should do now was to think of all ways to increase his strength. What he needed to do now was to break into the advanced profound death realm and refine the physical body of the ancient ancestor sect leader into a demonic puppet. He wanted to think of all ways to make himself stronger. Fortunately, he had plundered hundreds of millions of Xian cores in the chaos, which made him rich all of a sudden. Otherwise, it would have been impossible to refine the physical body of the ancient ancestor sect leader. Without enough wealth, he couldn't support it at all. Without any hesitation, he found a safe and remote place and began to cultivate in seclusion. He first burned a large number of Xian cores and poured them into the mysterious space. He didn't have that much time to comprehend the Earth Fiend demonic puppet technique. He had to master it in a short period of time. Time flew by as he cultivated in seclusion day by day, just like a white steed flashing past a crack. In the blink of an eye, 5 years passed in the blink of an eye. For the entire profound world, 5 years was just a drop in the ocean. But because it was at this point in time, many things happened at the same time. The most important thing was, of course, the long-awaited Nameless Tao College. It was finally fully opened. When this news came out, the entire profound world was shaken. Everyone's attention was immediately focused on the Nameless Tao Academy. With the opening of the Nameless Tao College, the brutal journey and training that had lasted for 10 years were finally liberated. Now, the geniuses who still had a place token no longer had to worry about being ambushed when they left home. They were now official disciples of the Nameless Tao College. If any force wanted to attack them, they would be challenging the dignity of the Nameless Tao Academy. No force had the guts to do so. They could finally heave a sigh of relief. The carp turning over and leaping over the Dragon Gate was right in front of them. In the 10 years of battle, the quota tokens had already changed hands countless times. Many people had already lost count of the number of owners of the quota tokens they had. Those who were able to stay were either extremely strong, had heaven-defying luck, or had a huge force background. Or they were peerless geniuses who had both. The owners of the entry tokens instantly became the target of countless people and countless forces who tried to recruit them. Especially those who had never changed owners from the beginning, they became the cream of the crop. Everyone knew that once they graduated from the Nameless Tao Academy, they would become peerless figures without exception. Many people had already stepped into the myth realm while they were still in the Nameless Tao Academy, which was the Pawang realm. This was the reason why the Nameless Tao Academy's entry tokens were so precious. It would take many years for an ordinary person to step into the Paoang realm. Even if they were already at the peak of the profound death realm, many people would never have the chance to enter the Paoang realm in their lifetime. Yet, the Nameless Tao Academy had achieved this in a short 10 years. One could imagine how crazy everyone was. Everyone was waiting for the owners of the entry tokens to appear. Now that there was no more danger, they would appear one by one. Every one of them was a figure who had once caused a sensation in the world. Over the past 5 years, all kinds of geniuses had appeared like carps crossing the river. Meteors flashed across the dark sky. Slowly, Yi Shiwen, who was the absolute center of attention and focus of everyone, slowly became synonymous with mediocrity. Yi Shiwen's quota hadn't been changed compared to the other brilliant battles and the deeds of many geniuses. However, the people who had been paying attention to him knew that the reason why he hadn't been changed wasn't because he had experienced many battles and trials. Instead, it was because no one had found any trace of him during these 5 years. It seemed as if he had vanished from the face of the earth during these 5 years. There wasn't even the slightest shadow of him, nor any trace of his whereabouts. Even the people of the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Union had exhausted all their resources to search for Yi Shiwen. However, in the end, there was no trace of him at all. It was as if he had evaporated from the world. In other words, he had never appeared in front of anyone, and no one could find any trace of him. There were also many people who felt that he was probably already dead. There were so many dangerous places in the mysterious realm battlefield, and no one knew how many tyrannical existences were hiding there. If they were not careful and met one of them, it would be a dead end for them. This was the only explanation as to why Yi Shiwen could not be found at all. Even giants like the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Union could not find any traces of him. This in itself was very abnormal. Under such circumstances, the enthusiasm for discussing him gradually disappeared. Everyone's attention was focused on the more dazzling and peerless geniuses. 5 years later, in a hidden valley, a figure sitting cross-legged finally opened his eyes. Boom! With a loud boom, a boundless aura instantly swept out. The entire valley was instantly flattened by his terrifying aura, and it could not be suppressed. After a long time, he slowly retracted his aura. Finally, advanced profound death realm. Chapter 1995. He had truly stepped into the late profound death realm. Now that he had unleashed all of his strength, combined with the martial arts incarnation and the 5 emperors, his strength was almost comparable to an existence who had just entered the profound death realm. Although it was not comparable to those who had already touched the Paoang realm, it was enough to enter the ranks of the top experts in the current Xian world. In order to cross this step, he spent a total of 5 years and 20 million Xian pills to successfully take this step. Of course, in these 5 years, most of his time was spent on refining the ancient ancestor sect leader's demonic puppet. Since 5 years ago, after snatching the ancient ancestor sect leader's body from the Heaven Wasteland War Immortal, Yi Shiwen began to constantly refine it into a demonic puppet. To refine the ancient ancestor sect leader of the Paoang realm with the strength of the profound realm was naturally difficult. Although the Earth Fiend demonic puppet technique was very powerful, even so, he spent a total of 5 years and 30 million Xian pills to barely refine 10% of the ancient ancestor sect leader's corpse. But just this 10% was powerful enough to possess the strength of the Paoang realm's first level. Although it was only at the bottom of the Paoang realm, for Yi Shiwen, it was also an extremely powerful insurance. Even if he faced the Abyss Demon Lord, he would no longer be powerless to fight back. Previously, when facing the Abyss Demon Lord, he was only lucky to be able to escape. Now he was much more confident. The Paoang realm, in ancient times, had another name, which was the demigod realm. Experts who had reached this level would almost all give birth to some divinity, and their bodies would also begin to transform from a mortal body to a god. It was also because of some divinity that people who did not know the truth described it as the mythical realm, because for them, being able to give birth to divinity in the body was no different from becoming a god. In ancient times, there was no specific division of the demigod realm. It was just a big realm. For the ancient almighties, the demigod realm was only a transition into the realm of Tao confirmation and a threshold in cultivation. But for the current warriors, Tao confirmation and God confirmation had almost become a legendary thing. The Pawang realm, which was also the demigod realm, was already the peak that a human could reach. Many people were trapped in the Pawang realm and may not be able to go further in their lives. As a result, the realm of Pawang was gradually divided into more realms, and gradually came to be known as the 9 realms of Pawang to determine the strength of the different realms. In this regard, Yimo was disdainful. For him, there was no need to divide the demigod realm into 9 levels. But for Yi Shiwen, this was just a way of saying it. Anyway, even if there was no division, he would still climb up step by step. In the mysterious realm, it made a huge difference whether or not a force had a Pawang realm expert. Only with a Pawang realm expert could a force be called a first-rate force. The reason why the primordial human race had been as stable as Mount Tai in the profound world for so many years was because they had a Pawang realm expert. Once a Pawang realm expert showed any signs of weakness, it would immediately attract countless covetous gazes. But now, Yi Shiwen alone possessed a top-notch fighting strength comparable to that of a first-rate force. If this news were to spread out, it would probably shock everyone. With the protection of a Pawang expert, the result would naturally be completely different. However, the price to pay would naturally be extremely high. 5 years had finally passed in the blink of an eye. Now, he could finally be considered a disciple of the nameless Tao Academy. He no longer had to worry about being hunted down everywhere, at least on the surface. This also gave him enough time to grow. In the next 10 years, even the Divine Alliance and the Heaven Wasteland Palace would not dare to openly deal with him with the title of a disciple of the nameless Tao Academy. He could finally heave a sigh of relief for the time being. He no longer had to hide everywhere at all times. Although he had been in hiding for the past 5 years, it did not mean that he knew nothing. In fact, at his level, as long as he paid attention, he would always be able to find out some things. Although it was only some big news that shook the entire profound world, it was already enough. In the past 5 years, to the entire profound world, apart from the opening of the nameless Tao Academy, the biggest news was that the people of the Divine Alliance had actually discovered the tomb of a fallen god. It was the imp devil god that Yi Shiwen had seen in the ruins. Ever since traces of that god had been discovered, all the major forces had joined forces and started to search for the whereabouts of this god. It was easy to imagine the benefits of a fallen god. No one could resist such a temptation. Ever since they received this news, more than a dozen major forces, including the Divine Alliance, the Heaven Wasteland Palace, and the Heavenly Cloud City, had all gathered in that direction. Because of this matter, even the expedition that the Heaven Wasteland Palace had originally planned had to be delayed. This was also the real reason why Yi Shiwen could leisurely cultivate in seclusion. They had even organized an expedition, and all the major forces had brought out their greatest strength. The expeditionary army was split into 5 groups, and each group had more than 5 myth realm experts. There were also countless profound death realm and profound life realm experts. They charged into the graveyard of the gods in a grandiose manner. No one knew the specifics of the process, but in the end, more than half of the experts from the various families were killed. The remaining experts also fled in a sorry state. Even among the 20 or so myth experts, less than half of them managed to escape alive. This matter caused a stir in the entire profound world. Such a force was enough to wipe out any force in the profound world. However, they had actually suffered a crushing defeat and escaped. Furthermore, they had suffered such a huge loss. It could even be said that the major forces had suffered a blow. Although it wasn't a serious blow, it was still shocking enough. This matter had been fermenting for a few years, and it had yet to be settled. As for what they had encountered inside, he wasn't sure either. On one hand, the major forces didn't talk about this matter. On the other hand, Yi Shiwen was in a state of seclusion and couldn't probe with all his might. Naturally, the results he obtained weren't very detailed. This was a huge matter for the major forces, but it couldn't be any better for him. If the Heaven Wasteland Palace really wanted to go on an expedition to the ancient wilderness, then he could only go back and fight with his life on the line. This actually gave him an opportunity. Now, it's time to head to the Nameless Tao Academy. After completing his cultivation, he didn't stop and directly rushed towards the Nameless Tao Academy. Originally, it was already close to the time when the Nameless Tao Academy would start, and he was very far away. However, this time, he had the ancient ancestor sect's leader's demonic puppet. A legendary figure directly activated it at full power, so one could imagine how fast it was. In almost half a day, Yi Shiwen had already arrived at the periphery of the Nameless Tao Academy. In order not to alarm the experts of the Nameless Tao Academy, he still kept the demonic puppet. He had just arrived at the periphery of Luoyue City. Swoosh! A wave of light flickered, and immediately after, a shocking saber radiance directly swept over, splitting the space and instantly slashing towards Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was vigilant. He immediately raised his hand to block. Clang! An incomparably loud sound of metal colliding resounded. In front of Yi Shiwen, a long saber revealed itself, and in the space behind the long saber, a faintly discernible figure was hiding within. An expert at the peak of the profound death realm. Yi Shiwen was shocked. This shocking murderous aura was released by this faintly discernible figure. An expert at the peak of the profound death realm had actually personally ambushed him. One could imagine how shocked he was in his heart. It should be known that a first-rate force would only have one legendary expert. An ordinary leader of a second-rate force would only be at the peak of the profound death realm. Even so, there weren't many second-rate forces in the Xian world. Moreover, this expert's body was filled with murderous and deathly aura. He wasn't an ordinary expert, but an assassin. He had been ambushed before he could even speak. One could imagine that the assassin had come for him. Under certain circumstances, an assassin at the peak of the profound death realm could even assassinate a legendary expert. One could imagine how terrifying he was. I think you're courting death. Who sent you? Yi Shiwen shouted, and his voice reverberated throughout Luoyue City. Swish! The assassin didn't reply to Yi Shiwen's words. Instead, he slashed down with his blade. The blade radiance swept out quickly and ruthlessly. One could imagine that this was an extremely professional assassin. Yi Shiwen didn't know which assassin organization he belonged to. He had been paid to go all out to deal with Yi Shiwen. As for who had hired him, Yi Shiwen didn't even need to think to figure it out. It was either the Heaven Desolate Palace or the Divine Alliance. Only these two would pay such a huge price to deal with him. An existence at the peak of the profound death realm wasn't someone that anyone could hire. Even if they could, the price they had to pay would also be considerable. Without a deep hatred, it was impossible for them to make such a decision. However, Yi Shiwen did indeed have such a deep hatred for them. Yi Shiwen didn't dodge or evade. He immediately activated the 5 Emperor Body Enhancement state. His aura suddenly soared by many times, and with a loud bang, it started to churn. A large hand reached out and grabbed the blade radiance. The blade radiance continuously struggled in his hand and was crushed into pieces by him. All of them exploded with a loud bang. Not talking? Then I'll beat you until you talk. Yi Shiwen sneered. Although these people were dangerous, they were good at hiding. If they failed to hit their target, they would flee far away. If they were to fight head-on, their strength would be much weaker. Therefore, Yi Shiwen dared to fight even without merging with his martial arts embodiment. Chapter 1996. Yi Shiwen's loud shout immediately attracted the attention of countless people in Luoyue City. Isn't that Yi Shiwen? A sharp-eyed person recognized Yi Shiwen almost immediately. Although he had not appeared in front of everyone for a full 5 years, for these people it was just that they had forgotten about him, but they had not truly forgotten about this man. Perhaps even after a few more years, this man's existence would still be sung about by people. It was rare to see a man who could do such a stunning and daring thing. It's indeed him. Didn't the news say that he had already died in a mysterious battlefield? Looking at it now, it's obvious that these are all rumors. Rumors. I was right. How could this man die so easily? This is going to be interesting. Even with the protection of the nameless Tao College, I'm afraid the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Palace won't let this matter go so easily. Everyone understood the temperament of the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Palace very well. They wouldn't let someone who had challenged their dignity go unpunished. Therefore, many people started to think about how the people of the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Union would react when they heard this news. However, they reacted very quickly. They weren't waiting for the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Union to react. In fact, they had already reacted, hadn't they? No one believed that this assassin and death warrior had really appeared here by accident and ended up fighting Yi Shiwen. The Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Union are really fast. They actually discovered his return so quickly. No, I think they must have set up an ambush. If Yi Shiwen is still alive, there's no reason for him not to return now that the nameless Tao College has opened. It's been 5 years. You're finally back. For the past 5 years, I haven't stopped wanting to fight with you. Di Wuxiang said as he silently stroked the longbow in his hand in a courtyard. His eyes were exceptionally resolute. In another courtyard, Hua Menghan's cold figure stood still as she looked at the green figure in the sky. She was actually a little dazed as she stared at him. Brother Yi, we haven't seen each other for many years. Let me see how much you've improved over the years. A young man was walking on the street with a long sword on his back. It was as sharp as a treasured sword. Everywhere he passed, people would avoid him out of fear of not being able to catch up. He looked into the void and saw Yi Shiwen in the distance. He couldn't help but smile. Yi Shiwen's loud shout caused countless people in the entire Luoyue city to roar out at once. At this time, in the sky, Yi Shiwen's counterattack had just begun. You won't speak? Then I'll beat you until you talk. Yi Shiwen clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and directly punched out. The entire sky collapsed with a loud bang. However, it was nothing in front of the golden fist energy. The energy that could destroy the world rushed towards the assassin with extreme speed. When the assassin saw that his saber was about to shatter, he immediately roared and brandished his saber radiance, which turned into a long dragon, to receive the attack head-on. Boom! The fist energy and the saber light collided fiercely, forming a brilliant firework effect. Bang! Yi Shiwen's punch directly smashed his blade light. This blade light was strange, fast, and came from a tricky angle. It was very difficult to defend against, but Yi Shiwen didn't want to be led by the nose. Regardless of the assassin's attack, Yi Shiwen directly punched the assassin's skull. He could resist the assassin's saber, but could the assassin take his punch head-on? The assassin was obviously aware of this, so he did not dare to fight with his life at all. He could only temporarily change from offense to defense. His defense immediately collapsed. His moves were meant to be used in exchange for one's life. So his defensive power had been reduced by more than half. Not to mention, Yi Shiwen's fists were invincible and ferocious. They were too terrifying. He quickly retreated. His figure was like a strange shadow, and it actually distorted the space. He wanted to hide in it to avoid Yi Shiwen's fist energy. You want to hide? Where do you think you're going? Yi Shiwen's speed was even faster. He took a step and instantly came to the position of the assassin. His hands tore out endless golden light. Immediately, the space was like a picture. It directly tore a huge crack on the spot, revealing the assassin's figure. The assassin was horrified. His eyes flashed with incomparable astonishment. He thought that Yi Shiwen's physical body was so tyrannical, so his speed shouldn't be that fast. Who knew that Yi Shiwen would catch up to him even though he started later? He immediately wanted to dodge again and jump directly into the chaos. Want to leave? Yi Shiwen sneered and immediately formed a complex seal. In the sky, a huge seal fell from the void and immediately turned into a huge mountain and fell down from the sky. Even the sky seemed to be shaken by this big seal. Bang! The assassin screamed directly on the spot. He was directly hit by the rippling mountain seal. A mouthful of blood, mixed with some fragments of internal organs, was shattered in one fell swoop. The terrifying power of the rippling mountain seal was evident. However, the assassin did not dare to stop. He did not even stop for a moment. Yi Shiwen was too terrifying. He was like a monster. Even though his direct combat ability could only be considered as a bottom feeder among the experts at the peak of the profound death realm, he was still at the peak of the profound death realm. Even though he was at the bottom of the profound death realm, he was still at the peak of the profound death realm. Moreover, he was an assassin. Anyone who saw his profession would be terrified. Even experts at the legend realm would not be willing to offend them. No one would be vigilant for life. Everyone had a time when they made a mistake. At that time, it would be truly fatal. In order to assassinate a target, he had hidden for 100 years without moving. In the end, he killed the target. This kind of patience was something that people who were not in this profession would never understand. Where there's life, there's hope. However, if he wanted to leave, then he would be looking down on Yi Shiwen too much. His speed was extremely fast. He shuttled through the void like a ghost. However, Yi Shiwen's speed was even faster. He directly chased after him, like lightning. Voila! On his body, an even more terrifying power of thunder spread out, and the power of wind and thunder domain expanded. In an instant, this expert assassin's path was completely blocked. Instantly, countless lightning energies surged into his body. It caused his entire body to become numb. Even his movements became inconvenient. At this moment, a sword chi cut through the sky. It was as vast and mighty as a great river as it swooped down. It fiercely slashed into the assassin's body. Bang! With a heavy blow, the assassin's body immediately split into pieces. He was instantly gravely injured and his Yuan spirit was destroyed. A peak of the profound death realm expert died instantly. All the wealth on his body had fallen into Yi Shiwen's hands. However, what made him a little depressed was that this assassin was extremely experienced. He actually did not keep all the wealth on him. He only had a few 100,000 Xian pills and some healing pills. One look, and one could tell that he had come to fight with his life on the line. He did not even bring his true wealth with him. This was because if he failed, not only would he lose his life, he would also have to give his wealth to his enemy. It was really not worth it. However, for Yi Shiwen, who was in great need of Xian pills, he did not care about how much he had. All the essence blood in his body had been completely absorbed by Yi Shiwen. After all, he was still a peak of the profound death realm expert. His cultivation had actually increased by a small amount. This was already a pleasant surprise for him. Yi Shiwen's current cultivation was more than 10 times stronger than someone of the same cultivation level. Even if it was only a small increase, it was still a huge amount. This attack had given him great confidence. A peak of the profound death realm was only SOSO. Of course, he was also very clear that the reason why he was able to succeed so easily was largely because this expert assassin did not fight to the death with him. Instead, he had chosen to escape. He was focused on escaping and did not have much thought to counterattack. This gave Yi Shiwen an easy opportunity to finish him off. Otherwise, if a peak of the profound death realm expert fought to the death, even Yi Shiwen would have a hard time dealing with him. Because of Yi Shiwen's attack, Luoyue City fell into a temporary silence. A peak of the profound death realm expert, even if he was just an assassin, was actually not a match for Yi Shiwen. He did not seem to have stepped into the peak of the profound death realm. He did not have that kind of aura, nor did he feel like he was at the peak of the profound death realm. They were also experts of the profound death realm. Therefore, they were the most emotional. 5 years ago, it was very strenuous for him to deal with a late profound death realm expert. In the beginning, he was even chased by Elder Xianting and had no choice but to pay a huge price in order to seriously injure him. This was something that many people in Luoyue City had personally witnessed. 5 years ago, they had personally witnessed Yi Shiwen slaughtering over 100 experts of the Divine Alliance in the Heaven Desolate Palace. In a mere 5 years, he had advanced from a brat who had just entered the profound death realm to the late profound death realm. Moreover, his fighting strength had also improved at an astonishing rate. A peak of the profound death realm expert was like a toy to him. He had killed him with a single blow. His improvement is so fast. If this goes on, it will be terrible. How frightening. His improvement is practically visible. This time, The Divine Alliance and the Heaven Desolate Palace have miscalculated. Originally, they thought that a peak of the profound Death Realm Death Warrior would be enough to kill Yi Shiwen with a single blow. Who could have imagined that he would be able to kill him so easily? The Heaven Desolate Palace and the Divine Alliance have made a good plan. However, it's a pity that they failed to accurately calculate Yi Shiwen's fighting strength. This is why they suffered such a huge loss. If this goes on, I'm afraid that only legendary figures will be able to suppress him. Chapter 1997. After Yi Shiwen had killed a pinnacle profound Death Realm expert, many people realized that it was no longer feasible to treat Yi Shiwen as a temporary nouveau riche and an insignificant person. He was on the rise, and the speed at which he was rising was extraordinarily fast. If this went on, even if a pinnacle profound Death Realm expert or an experienced old freak could defeat him, they would not be able to kill him. Only a Myth Realm expert would have a chance. However, before that, they still had to face the wrath of the Nameless Tao College. It would have been fine if the assassination had been successful. Even if they had to face the wrath of the Nameless Tao College, it would have been worthwhile. However, since it had failed, they had suffered a double loss. Everyone had mixed feelings, but no matter what, they had to admit that such a person was probably not far from becoming a true powerhouse in the mysterious world. He was also not far from entering the Myth Realm. The Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Palace were the classic examples of people who did not kill a snake and suffer the consequences. If he was allowed to grow, he would be a huge disaster for the two great forces, especially for a person who could become a legend. After refining the essence blood, Yi Shiwen did not care about how shocked they were and directly entered Luoyue City. As soon as he entered Luoyue City, Hua Menghan's figure appeared in front of him. It's been 5 years, and there's been no news at all. Even with Hua Menghan's calmness, the first sentence she said upon seeing him was a little concerned and reproachful. There had been no news in 5 years. If she had not believed that he would definitely return safely, she would not have been able to wait any longer. In the past, she had waited for hundreds of years like this. However, after being together, she could not even wait for 5 years. Every day felt like a year. I was wrong. Yi Shiwen could not help but smile bitterly. If anyone saw this, their eyeballs would probably fall out of their sockets. Yi Shiwen, who was decisive in killing, actually had such a side to him. It was just 3 simple words, but it turned her complaints into nothingness. Nothing was left, except for her tender feelings. Yi Shiwen naturally held Hua Menghan's soft little hand. It was slightly cold, just like white jade. Just as they were about to continue being affectionate, a hearty laughter suddenly came from the street. Yi Shiwen, I haven't seen you for hundreds of years. How are you? Yi Shiwen felt that this voice was slightly familiar, but he couldn't recall where he had heard it. Suddenly, he turned his head and saw that this person was extremely familiar. He immediately recognized him. Who else could it be but Jian Wuchen? Sure enough, it's you, Yi Shiwen said. Originally, when he saw Jian Wuchen's name, he suspected that they had the same name, but he felt that the probability of them sharing the same name was too small, especially since they were both sword cultivators. He didn't expect that it was indeed Jian Wuchen. Everyone knew that Yi Shiwen's origin was different from that of the remote antiquity. Only Yi Shiwen himself knew that he was born in the true martial world. He had forgotten about his hometown and his memories. This was his true root. At this time, when he saw Jian Wuchen, who was also from the true martial domain, he immediately felt an incomparable sense of familiarity. It was like meeting an old friend in a foreign land. Ha ha, just like how I guessed it was you the moment I saw the name. You should also find it familiar. Jian Wuchen laughed heartily as he walked over. The two of them had a very good relationship, so naturally, he didn't stand on ceremony at this time. The estrangement of hundreds of years had vanished with a few words. That's right, I just felt that it was you, but I couldn't be sure, Yi Shiwen said with a smile. Hua Menghan naturally recognized Jian Wuchen, but she wasn't as familiar with him as Yi Shiwen. Ha! You must be wondering why I was able to walk out of the true martial domain and even come to the Nameless Tao Academy, Jian Wuchen said. Yi Shiwen nodded and didn't deny it. In the true martial world, Jian Wuchen's cultivation could be regarded as an outstanding genius. However, in the ancient desolate era, such cultivation was too ordinary. In fact, it couldn't even be considered outstanding. Not to mention, this was the nameless Tao Academy, where those who could get an invitation were as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. In the myriad heavens, they were the true top geniuses. A long time ago, when my master was traveling to the true martial domain, he took me as his disciple and brought me to the Xian world. Speaking of which, I came to the Xian world earlier than you did. To be honest, when I heard your name, I was really surprised. When you were in the true martial domain, you were a dragon among men, but I didn't expect that one day I would see you in the Xian world, Jian Wuchen said. When he heard Yi Shiwen's name, he was really surprised. It was simply incredible. He thought that he would never meet his old friends in the true martial domain again in this life. After all, the current level of both sides was too far apart. Who knew that he would hear the names of a few acquaintances one after another? Hua Minghan and Yi Shiwen, they were all the same. Putting Hua Minghan aside, it was not surprising that the ancient Phoenix realm celestial Phoenix maiden could appear in the Xian world battlefield, but Yi Shiwen, who did not have any background, was actually able to fight his way up. It was simply a miracle. As for the Yi clan of the ancient desolation, it was simply a joke. How could such a background be considered a background in the Xian world? Therefore, in the eyes of many, he truly relied on his own strength to fight his way up, which was truly commendable. May I know who your master is? Yi Shiwen asked curiously. He could actually bring Jian Wuchen directly from the true martial domain to the Xian world, and it seemed that he was not an ordinary person. Otherwise, he would not have allowed Jian Wuchen to enter the nameless Tao Academy. The Lord of the Sword Realm. I wonder if you have heard of him, Jian Wuchen said with a smile. You are actually the disciple of the Lord of the Sword Realm. No wonder, Yi Shiwen immediately exclaimed. How could he not know of the existence of the Sword Realm? Even in the ancient desolation, the Lord of the Sword Realm was an illustrious existence. The Sword Realm was a world created by the combination of many Sword Dao experts, almost becoming a paradise for Sword Dao cultivators. No one knew how many Sword Dao experts there were. Even top realms like the Dragon Island and the ancient Phoenix Realm did not dare to provoke the experts of the Sword Realm. In terms of protecting their own, the Sword Realm could be said to be notorious. There was once a sect in a world that made a move on a disciple from the ancient Phoenix Realm, and as a result, a group of Sword Dao cultivators rushed into that world and exterminated the entire sect. Within a night, not a single person was left alive. This was also why, although the number of experts was far less than the ancient Phoenix Realm's Dragon Island, no one was willing to provoke them. For the lord of such a huge force, if he wanted to guide Jian Wuchen, it would be as easy as lifting a hand. Yi Shiwen, you must not know this. Actually, the venerable master paid attention to you when he was in the true martial realm, Jian Wuchen said with a smile. My venerable master has said many times that in terms of Sword Dao talent, you are much better than me. Originally, he was more interested in you, but unfortunately, my master said that although you are talented, you have not used your talent in the right way and have learned too many things. Although you are talented, you have wasted your talent. You have the talent of a Sword Dao cultivator, but you are ultimately unable to become a pure Sword Dao cultivator. Compared to you, I am still a little lacking. What do I count as? Talented in Sword Dao, Yi Shiwen said with a smile. He knew his own situation. Others might not know what was going on, but how could he not know? Although he would not belittle himself, he definitely could not be considered more talented than Jian Wuchen. That was simply impossible. In any case, it's a joyous occasion to be able to meet you again. TSK, I've heard your name quite a few times during this period. You've thoroughly pissed off the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Hall. Jian Wuchen laughed as he clapped. If they did not provoke me, why would I provoke them? Yi Shiwen shook his head and said, Anyway, I can't solve it. I will kill as many as they come. A murderous look flashed through Yi Shiwen's eyes. Good. You are indeed the fearless Yi Shiwen that I know. On the contrary, I am the one who is getting more and more restrained. I am not as carefree as you are. Jin Wuchen said with a smile. Now that you are here, let's hurry to the sky-splitting city. We should have gone there a long time ago, but I wanted to wait and see if you would return. At least I did not wait in vain. Yishuan nodded. Although the nameless Tao College claimed to have 4 satellite cities, the closest one was actually the sky-splitting city. Every time it opened, it was not far from the sky-splitting city. At this time, many people had probably already rushed to the sky-splitting city. There were probably not many people left here. If not for Hua Minghan, he would have rushed to the sky-splitting city long ago. Brother Diwu, why haven't you shown yourself? Yi Shiwen suddenly said in a loud voice. I still can't hide it from you. Diwu's sadness said, Yi Shiwen, you have improved a lot in the past 5 years. However, don't underestimate me. If we have time in the future, let's fight again. You are welcome. Yi Shiwen said with a smile. It was not easy to find such an evenly matched opponent. However, since you are back, let me tell you that there are people waiting for you in the sky-splitting city. Diwu's sadness was about to leave when he suddenly turned his head and said. Upon hearing this, Hua Minghan and Jin Wuchen's expressions became a little strange, as if they had thought of something. Chapter 1998. Sky-rending City had become the focal point of the entire profound world for a long time to come. Spies from various factions, as well as many geniuses, had all gathered here. Because so many geniuses had gathered here, the place had become even more lively. Clashes between various geniuses were common. The arrival of Yi Shiwen, Hua Minghan, Jin Wuchen, and Diwu hard-hearted added fuel to the already heated atmosphere, making it even hotter. Another few peerless geniuses had appeared, especially Yi Shiwen, who had been the talk of the town 5 years ago, had attracted the attention of all the major factions in the city. They had only forgotten about him, but they had not forgotten him completely. Although the news of Yi Shiwen easily killing a peak profound death realm expert had not spread to Sky-rending City, even so, Yi Shiwen from 5 years ago was not to be underestimated. In fact, he was even more powerful than these old monsters who had lived for many years. However, as Diwu hard-hearted had said, trouble had already come knocking on Yi Shiwen's door before he had even gained a foothold in Sky-rending City. Yi Shiwen, come here obediently and kowtow to me. A childish voice resounded throughout the entire Sky-rending City. Then, a small figure leapt in front of Yi Shiwen, stepping on a streak of light. Yi Shiwen saw that it was a child of about 7 or 8 years old. He had a chubby face and looked quite cute. However, he was looking at Yi Shiwen with a somewhat arrogant look on his face. You're that Yi Shiwen? He glanced at Yi Shiwen and said, Little brother, who are you? Yi Shiwen's brows furrowed slightly. He still remembered that he had asked him to obediently kowtow to him. Who are you calling little brother? You're the little brother. Your whole family are little brothers. The child immediately became anxious. Little brat, have you weaned yet? How dare you ask me to obediently kowtow to you? Yi Shiwen laughed loudly. The child's face immediately turned ashen. He hated it when people talked about his appearance. That was an eternal pain in his heart. What are you laughing at? He immediately scolded. Little brat who hasn't weaned yet. Where are you going to play? Uncle is very busy and has no time to play with you. Yi Shiwen said indifferently. He was really treating the child like a child. The surrounding air was filled with uncontrollable laughter. It was unknown how many people were paying attention to this matter, but at this moment, they had completely burst out laughing. An uncontrollable smile flashed across Hua Minghan's face as she looked at Yi Shiwen with a look of rebuke. Her lover's ability to insult others had not regressed much after all these years had passed. Yet this kind of insulting words could cause people to suffer internal injuries. Ha ha ha, I'm dying from laughter. Yi Shiwen, you're really good. You, Yi Shiwen, use the first person to treat you like a child. Jin Wuchen was already hugging his stomach and laughing hysterically. He looked like he was going to cram from laughing so hard that he couldn't take it anymore. What are you laughing at? Jin Wuchen, if you dare to laugh again, I'll suppress you and have you come to the sword world to get your people. The heavenly eagle boy couldn't help but fly into a rage. All right, let's give it a try. Jin Wuchen coldly looked at the heavenly eagle boy and said coldly. The smile on his face disappeared, and the sword behind him released a shocking sword chi. It seemed like a fight could break out at any time. Yi Shiwen looked at Jian Wuchen with some astonishment. From the looks of Jian Wuchen's cultivation, it was likely that he was already at the peak of the profound death stage. It had only been a few hundred years, but he had already reached such a level. Just who was the master of the sword realm? Jian Wuchen's cultivation was originally inferior to Yi Shiwen's, but now he had actually surpassed him. Even though he had many tricks up his sleeves and was confident that he would be able to win if they were to really fight, it was an ironclad fact that his cultivation level had been surpassed. He couldn't help but feel a sense of urgency. Originally, he was quite proud of his own progress, but now it seemed that while he was improving, others didn't slow down either. On the contrary, they were advancing at an astonishing speed. Jian Wuchen, I will deal with you later. Boy Tianying looked at Yi Shiwen and said. Yi Shiwen was secretly wondering when he had a conflict with Boy Tianying. He had never even heard of this name, nor was he in the list of the first 100 people. There were probably less than 30% of those who were still on the list. However, he was not a good-tempered person since someone was provoking him. Have you weaned yet? If you haven't, then go home and drink milk. I don't have time to coax a child. Yi Shiwen said coldly. Yi Shiwen, how dare you disrespect me? I think you are really tired of living. Originally, I only wanted you to worship me, but now it seems that I have to make an example out of you. Otherwise, if people keep provoking our Tang family, how long will it take for us to deal with them? As he spoke, the doll-like Heavenly Eagle Boy's face revealed a shocking killing intent. Yi Shiwen's face immediately sank. He had never offended this Boy Tianying. As for the Tang family, he had never even heard of them. Get lost. Children should go home and play in the mud. Don't pretend to be an adult here. Yi Shiwen said coldly. Heavenly Eagle Boy hated it the most when people used his appearance to talk about things. However, Yi Shiwen had repeatedly mentioned this matter. So, how could he not hate him in his heart? I think you are courting death. Boy Ning suddenly became angry, but he forcibly calmed down and said, I heard that you once defeated Jun Ding Tian, the arrogant guy. Yes, so what? Yi Shiwen said coldly. That's great. That guy doesn't know what's good for him. He actually wants to challenge my brother. He doesn't know what he is. I wanted to suppress him and let him know how powerful I am. But now, I don't know where he is. Since you have defeated him before, that's for the best. As long as I suppress you, I can prove that he is nothing more than this. Boy Heavenly Eagle seemed to be certain. Yi Shiwen suddenly did not know whether to laugh or cry. It was not that he had never been caught in the crossfire, but this was the first time he had been caught in the crossfire because of his mortal enemy. Moreover, the reason was so ridiculous. Just because he had defeated Jun Ding Tian, he had now become the scapegoat of his enemy. Suppress me? You should go home and drink milk. Although Yi Shiwen knew the whole story, he did not have a good temper. I think you are really tired of living. Go to hell. Finally, Yi Shiwen's words thoroughly infuriated the Heavenly Eagle Boy, who had already reached the critical point of anger. He leaped into the sky and transformed into a huge divine eagle on the spot. With a loud cry, he looked like a rock flying in the ninth heaven. He was incomparably ferocious. His claws were incomparably sharp, and he directly clawed at Yi Shiwen's head. He was truly incomparably fierce. Humph! Yi Shiwen snorted coldly. He did not show any weakness, and directly bombarded with his fists. Boom! 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 Each of his fists blasted out a golden ocean. The golden light was like a boundless tsunami, which made everyone's face change. Yi Shiwen's fist energy completely sealed the pair of incomparably sharp eagle claws that Boy Tianying had transformed into. Boy Tianying's eagle claws were even more powerful. With a loud tearing sound, he actually tore Yi Shiwen's fist energy apart. The eagle claws directly turned into a huge eagle beak and directly bit down on Yi Shiwen. The sky was completely bitten into pieces. Both sides directly fought in the sky-rending city. However, both of them had some scruples, and the battlefield instantly moved outside. Yi Shiwen was immediately taken aback. Boy Tianying's eagle claw technique was quite impressive. It was probably only slightly inferior to Yuelao. whom Yi Shiwen had met previously. His cultivation was also quite impressive. He had actually stepped into the peak late profound death realm, which was a little more profound than Yi Shiwen's cultivation. No wonder he was so arrogant. Even among the peerless geniuses who had obtained the quota, some of them were only at the intermediate profound death realm. It was rare for them to reach the peak profound death realm. Wasn't Yi Shiwen only at the late stage of the profound death realm? The divine eagle in the air seemed to have flesh and blood. It was full of vitality. Its ferocious eagle beak seemed to be able to bite through the sky. However, Yi Shiwen was neither hurried nor slow. He did not dodge. Instead, he directly met the eagle head-on and directly threw out a punch. His tyrant body was invincible. Among those of the same realm, he had never been afraid of a head-on confrontation. Bang! Yi Shiwen's fist energy was so strong and fierce that it actually exploded the divine eagle on the spot. However, before Yi Shiwen could continue to attack, the divine eagle had actually condensed again. Once again, it swooped down towards Yi Shiwen. It wanted to bite Yi Shiwen to death. Yi Shiwen, go to hell. You have thoroughly infuriated me, and no one can save you now. Boy Heavenly Eagle roared. He wanted to swallow Yi Shiwen alive on the spot. This boy Tianying is very strong. Some people say that he relied on his elder brother to obtain the quota. Now it seems that this is simply nonsense. With his strength, he can be ranked among the hundreds of people without Tung Yaoyang's help. Indeed, the boy Tianying may look young, but he has actually lived for hundreds of years. It is only because he has cultivated a kind of virgin technique that he has been able to maintain his young appearance. He hates people talking about his appearance the most. However, Yi Shiwen has mentioned it repeatedly. I'm afraid that he will not let this matter rest. Let this matter rest? He is not to be trifled with, but Yi Shiwen is not a good person either. Didn't the Divine Union and the Desolate Heaven Palace suffer a great loss at his hands? This is a dialogue between the strong. It is really interesting. You should think about it. Who will save you is more practical. A dialogue between the strong? You still have a long way to go. Yi Shiwen shouted coldly and instantly counterattacked. Chapter 1999. You have to think about it. Who is going to save you? A conversation between the strong? You're still far from that. Yi Shiwen shouted in a cold voice and launched a counterattack. Shwa! Yi Shiwen's fist blasted out, and a large area of the void collapsed. The fist energy followed the collapsed space and directly blasted towards the Heavenly Eagle Boy. Yi Shiwen's fist energy seemed as if it would grind everything into pieces. The Heavenly Eagle Boy used an amazing secret technique on the spot and strangled Yi Shiwen. An inexplicable power surged in the void and strangled Yi Shiwen's fist energy. Then, the Heavenly Eagle Boy fiercely clawed towards Yi Shiwen like a dragon. It seemed as if it wanted to grab and destroy everything in its path. An even more surprising scene appeared. Yi Shiwen stood motionless and let this power wreak havoc on his body. His black hair fluttered in the air. However, he couldn't break his gilded tyrant form. Yi Shiwen grabbed a big hand and pierced through the layers of space. He then grabbed the body of the Heavenly Eagle Boy, who had transformed into a divine eagle. Bang! Yi Shiwen grabbed and destroyed all the defenses on the Heavenly Eagle Boy's body. Then, he pulled the Heavenly Eagle Boy's body down and smashed it into the ground. It was simple and crude, but its power was amazing. Yi Shiwen's power was so terrifying that it was needless to say that the entire world was trembling when he unleashed his full power. This divine eagle was smashed on the spot, revealing the phantom of Heavenly Eagle Boy. His face was full of shock and anger, and blood was flowing down from the corner of his mouth. Yi Shiwen had thrown him to the ground and caused him to sustain internal injuries. This was simply an unprecedented thing. The Heavenly Eagle Boy leaped up and flew into the sky to fight with Yi Shiwen. Unfortunately, Yi Shiwen didn't give him such an opportunity and directly slapped him. Bang! The Heavenly Eagle Boy couldn't escape from Yi Shiwen's slap and was slammed into the ground again. Puff! He spouted a mouthful of blood, and a big hole appeared in the ground. Yi Shiwen, you dare to hurt me. Boy Heavenly Eagle glared at Yi Shiwen in anger. He clawed at Yi Shiwen several times in succession. He turned into a divine eagle and fluttered in the sky. He faced upwards and let out a loud cry. The sky was split open by his claws, and it looked incomparably astonishing. Unexpectedly, it directly grabbed towards Yi Shiwen. It's useless. Yi Shiwen was incomparably cold. He directly formed a hand seal, and then a huge roaring sound came out on the spot. He formed a Han seal and directly blew up these figures that were flying out. These divine eagles all exploded, turning into blood essence that filled the sky. These divine eagles were actually not condensed from energy, but formed from Boy Heavenly Eagle's blood essence. This way, the power of the array would increase by several folds. Unfortunately, they had encountered Yi Shiwen. These arrangements were simply vulnerable in front of him and were directly blown up on the spot. Everyone was incomparably shocked. At this time, the news of Yi Shiwen killing a peak profound death stage expert in Fallen Moon City had yet to spread. Therefore, they did not know Yi Shiwen's true strength. Just by looking at the scene, it was already incomparably shocking. The Heavenly Eagle Boy's reputation was not small, and his strength was not weak either. He was an expert at the late profound death stage. Such strength was more than enough to open a small sect in the Xian world. However, he was being toyed with by Yi Shiwen and was unable to retaliate. He was simply ridiculously strong. Yi Shiwen, I want you dead. Those figures were blown up on the spot. Boy Heavenly Eagle immediately let out a mournful scream. He was seriously injured and roared angrily. He directly opened his mouth, and then a black flowing light shot out at an astonishing speed, directly towards Yi Shiwen's face. Yi Shiwen immediately frowned. Although the speed of this black flowing light was not bad, it was still at a level that he could react to. However, what really made him feel that something was wrong was that he could feel an evil power staring at him. It firmly locked onto him, and made him feel as though he could not escape even if he went to the sky or the earth. Without any hesitation, he directly blasted out a few punches in succession. The fist energy turned into shocking waves that swept out. Puff! 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 After the fist energy came into contact with the black flowing light, it was completely destroyed on the spot. It could not stop the black flowing light at all. In an instant, the black flowing light that bombarded over like a bolt of lightning had already appeared in front of Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen did not dare to be negligent. He directly stepped on the ground, and a golden light filled the sky. His entire body flew backwards for thousands of meters on the spot, almost as if he had teleported. However, when his body had just completed the teleportation, the black flowing light had already pounced towards him. It was just as he had expected. Yi Shiwen's pupils slightly shrank. What exactly was this black flowing light? It was actually so evil. Clang! An incomparably loud sound of metal colliding rang out. The black flowing light was stopped a foot away from Yi Shiwen. Above Yi Shiwen's head, the yin-yang life and death diagram continuously rotated, and a light curtain hung down, protecting him within it. The black flowing light ruthlessly smashed into this light curtain. He did not know that a big hole had been made in the light curtain, and most of its body had been inserted horizontally. At this time, Yi Shiwen was finally able to see clearly what this thing was. It was actually a small eagle. It was a very small and delicate instrument about the size of a fist. It was carved with the image of a divine eagle. Although it was very small, it was very lifelike. This divine eagle instrument was full of astonishing energy fluctuations, so much so that Yi Shiwen did not need to carefully feel it to be able to feel it. If an ordinary person was targeted by it, they would almost die without a burial place. Not to mention, even if they could react, they would not be able to block it at all. Even the light curtain of Yi Shiwen's yin-yang life and death diagram had been inserted by more than half, and had almost been directly pierced by it. Such power was really rare and really terrifying. No wonder this was the trump card of the Heavenly Eagle Boy. Sure enough, he had a few tricks up his sleeve. No wonder he was so insolent, but unfortunately, he had met Yi Shiwen. You are very vicious. You want to kill me, but I won't kill you. I will only abolish your martial arts, so that you will not dare to be arrogant in the future." Yi Shiwen could not help but sneer. "How dare you?" The heavenly eagle boy's eyes were wide open, and his eyes were full of panic. No one had ever been able to hurt him to this extent before. "Why wouldn't I dare? You dare to kill people here? Do you think I won't dare to?" Yi Shiwen found it funny. Did he really think that the world revolved around him? Humph! Yi Shiwen snorted coldly and suddenly stamped his foot. Suddenly, boundless energy swept out. The earth rumbled and formed a huge crack, which spread in the direction of the heavenly eagle boy. "Stop!" Suddenly, a deafening roar could be heard coming from the sky-rending city. A stream of martial arts descended from the sky and blocked the huge crack, completely blocking it. "Who is it?" Yi Shiwen frowned and shouted. A figure directly streaked across the sky from the heaven-splitting city and flew out, landing in front of Yi Shiwen. It was an old man with a tiger's head and a human's body. His beard was very stiff like steel. He glanced at Yi Shiwen and said indifferently, "Yi Shiwen, how dare you ignore the laws of the nameless Tao College and attack a fellow disciple? Do you know your crime?" Yi Shiwen frowned slightly and said, "What crime have I committed? Do I have to let him kill me just because he wants to kill me? What kind of laws and rules are these? Why have I never heard of them? Humph! Do we need to explain the laws of the nameless Tao College to you?" The tiger-headed old man said coldly, and his tone was quite unfriendly. "Do you want to meddle in the establishment of the laws? How ambitious!" The tiger-headed old man's words directly put a big hat on Yi Shiwen's head, and he did not allow him to refute at all. What a joke! I've never heard of the nameless Tao College's laws having double standards. There are actually different standards for different people. What a joke! Yi Shiwen snorted coldly, not giving him any face at all. "When he said he wanted to kill me, I didn't see you upholding justice." He said the words "upholding justice" through gritted teeth. Even though the tiger-headed old man's skin was thicker than a city wall, he still blushed after being exposed by Yi Shiwen. Then, he could not help but fly into a rage out of humiliation. Yi Shiwen really did not know what was good for him. How dare he expose him like that? How dare you question our nameless Tao College? He immediately roared in anger out of humiliation. "So what if I question you? Who said that it's forbidden? The nameless Tao College didn't either, right? Besides, I'm only questioning you, not the nameless Tao College. Can you represent the nameless Tao College?" Yi Shiwen sneered disdainfully. What a sharp-tongued kid. The tiger-headed old man's face turned ashen. He was put on the spot by Yi Shiwen's words. At his status, who in this world would dare to embarrass him, let alone put him in such a difficult position? Yi Shiwen had completely put him on the spot, and he did not have any reason to do so. It was especially awkward at this moment. Yi Shiwen thought to himself, since this person is from the nameless Tao College, he should not be targeting me right from the start. After all, I've never heard of the nameless Tao College getting involved in fights between disciples. In the Mysterious World Club, the existence of the nameless Tao College was like an advanced course. It only recruited top talents for further studies, so there should not be any disputes. Why is this tiger-headed old man so biased towards the heavenly eagle child? The tiger-headed old man's face gradually turned ugly, and the aura on his body continued to erupt. His clothes fluttered as he continuously crushed towards Yi Shiwen. Chapter 2000. Even if only a little of that powerful aura leaked out, it was enough to put immense pressure on Yi Shiwen. The tiger-headed old man displayed unparalleled control over his aura. Not a single trace of it leaked out, and it completely crushed Yi Shiwen's body. Boom! 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 Yi Shiwen only felt a terrifying pressure constantly crushing down on his body. It was a rhythm that was forcing him to kneel. The space under his feet completely shattered inch by inch, and he was completely submerged in it. At this moment, the onlookers finally understood exactly what kind of terrifying force he had endured. It had actually caused the space beneath his feet to collapse. Don't go too far. Yi Shiwen gritted his teeth. His voice was deep like the roar of a wild beast. So what if I'm bullying you? The tiger-headed old man kept increasing his aura, and there were faint traces of divine majesty on his body. A myth expert. Yi Shiwen's eyes were abnormally furious. In the sky origin mirror, the ancient ancestor sect master's demonic puppet had already opened its eyes, and a terrifying demonic aura surged into the sky like a peerless demon. If it came down to it, Yang Qi would have devil roar attack. After all, a god myth was hostile to him, and nothing could be worse than that. Suddenly, a slightly playful voice was heard. Tiger-headed Venerable, what are you planning to do? Attacking our students is an unforgivable sin. A rather ordinary-looking eagle descended from the sky and transformed into a young man. The young man looked at the tiger-headed Venerable One with a playful smile on his face. Ying Tianzheng, I'm just letting him understand the rules of our nameless Tao Academy. He actually wants to cripple his fellow students' cultivation right from the start. That won't do. The tiger-headed Venerable's expression changed. He seemed to be very fearful, but he was not to be outdone. He did not want to lose to the man in front of him in this aspect. Rules? Why didn't I know that the nameless Tao Academy had such a rule that allows you to attack our students? The young man in the form of the divine eagle raised the corner of his mouth slightly and said, Yi Shiwen has already been chosen by my bloodline. Don't tell me that I don't know what your faction is planning. You better not let me see your little tricks again. Otherwise, I'll chop off your claws. Hurry up and scram, Ying Tianjing said in an extremely domineering manner. You. The tiger-headed paragon hadn't expected that Ying Tianjing would completely ignore him, a myth expert, in front of so many people. Good. The tiger-headed Venerable said exasperatedly. After that, the tiger-headed Venerable took the heavenly eagle boy and disappeared in a ball of light. He didn't dare to talk back after being reprimanded by Ying Tianzeng. Staying here would only make him look worse. Many thanks for saving me, senior. Yi Shiwen cupped his hands in obeisance and said, It's nothing. It's just a factional struggle. You'll understand it after a while. Ying Tianjing glanced at Yi Shiwen and said with a faint smile on his face, You're not bad. You've got guts. You even dared to offend the Divine Union and the desolate Heaven Hall. This isn't something an ordinary person can do. I was just forced to survive. The situation back then was one of us dying. There wasn't a third option. Yi Shiwen said, Well said. Actually, killing a few people isn't a big deal. The key is that the leader of the Divine Union actually used his profound cultivation to threaten us time and time again, refusing to accept you into the academy. Of course, we were the ones who pushed him back in the end. What a joke. The nameless Tao College has a deep foundation, so how could we be scared off so easily? However, I'm telling you this because I hope that you understand that the college is sparing no effort when nurturing you. You are also one of our favorite targets. Ying Tianzeng deliberately mentioned one of his targets to see how Yi Shiwen would react. In the end, Yi Shiwen's expression didn't change at all, as if he didn't care about this at all. You aren't upset? That's a little unexpected, Ying Tianjing said. There's nothing to be angry about. There are too many geniuses in this world, and I'm definitely not the only one, Yi Shiwen said with a smile. You're quite open-minded about this. Since your matter has been resolved, I'll take my leave. Whether or not you can enter the nameless Tao College will depend on your own efforts. This young man who had transformed into a divine eagle immediately finished drawing a figure, flapped his wings, and flew high. In a short while, he had already completely disappeared from Yi Shiwen's perception. This figure had come and gone inexplicably. However, it also made Yi Shiwen truly understand that the nameless Tao College wasn't as simple as outsiders thought it was. Perhaps there were even more mysteries hidden within. Following the departure of these two legendary figures, the entire sky-splitting city suddenly became lively. The originally oppressive atmosphere caused by the arrival of these two legendary figures was instantly released. Heavenly Eagle Boy was actually defeated by Yi Shiwen so easily. This is simply unbelievable. Yi Shiwen's progress during this period is simply terrifying. This is interesting. How can Tung Yaoyang let the matter rest after beating up Heavenly Eagle Boy? Tung Yaoyang claimed to have obtained the inheritance of the gods, and his young emperor was almost crippled by Yi Shiwen. How can he not care about such a deep hatred? That's right. Teng Yaoyang's strength can probably be ranked at the top among this generation's hundreds of disciples of the nameless Tao College. He formed his own Sun sect, which is comparable to the leader of the Divine Union many years ago. With such a successful example like the leader of the Divine Union in front of us, who wouldn't want to imitate him? This time, the 5 great disciples have formed their own organizations and forces. The Sun sect is one of the largest among them. Apart from the fact that it doesn't have a legendary figure, it's already comparable to a first-rate force. Given Teng Yaoyang's strength, it's only a matter of time before he enters the myth realm. Once he does, the Sun sect will become a first-rate force in the Xian world. How amazing! Yi Shiwen walked into the sky-splitting city. Many of the surrounding discussions entered his ears, and these people didn't even have the slightest intention of concealing it. Yi Shiwen, these people have already formed their own forces. Why don't you form one too? I'll just be an elder in it. Jian Wuchen said, when the time comes, with our reputation, we'll be able to attract a large number of talents to join us. We won't have to worry about the Sun sect at all. Yi Shiwen thought to himself. Fighting alone naturally had its advantages. He could leave at any time. As long as he was still alive, his vitality wouldn't be affected. However, forming a force also had its advantages. For example, the leader of the Divine Union had formed the Divine Union and recruited heroes from all over the world. He had allowed all the heroes in the world to rush about for him to become a god, gather all kinds of resources, and suppress all kinds of enemies for him. Now, the Divine Union had become a colossus with tentacles all over the Xian world. Once the leader of the Divine Union became a god, the Divine Union would sooner or later become the leader of the world. Naturally, these two methods had their own advantages and disadvantages. If he wanted to establish an organization now, it would naturally be more convenient. With him, Hua Minghan and Jian Wuchen as the foundation, he would have 3 top-notch experts. Unless a legendary figure took action, no one would be able to suppress them. Such a lineup was not inferior to the Sun sects. After all, the Sun sect couldn't possibly recruit a few experts of the younger generation. These people were all proud and arrogant. How many of them would be willing to be ordered around by others? However, the most important thing now was to report to the nameless Tao College and officially become a disciple of the college. After the 3 of them had officially reported to the college, they finally had the mood to pay attention to the situation in Heaven-Splitting City. Although the nameless Tao College had officially started recruiting, the space where the college was located had yet to be opened. Therefore, they could only live in Heaven-Splitting City for now. The 3 of them were not simple people. Very quickly, they figured out the current situation in Heaven-Splitting City. Currently, among the current disciples of the nameless Tao College in Heaven-Splitting City, 5 extremely powerful figures had emerged. Without exception, all of them were at the peak of the profound death realm. It was said that they had already touched the barrier of the Paoang realm and were about to truly step into the Paoang realm. They were known as the 5 great disciples. Teng Yaoyang was ranked second among them. The number of experts from the Sun sect in his organization was also among the best among the organizations established by the current disciples. It could be said that this was the embryonic form of a colossus in the future. Originally, this had nothing to do with Yi Shiwen. However, he had beaten up Heavenly Eagle Boy and had almost crippled his martial arts. Judging from Teng Yaoyang's domineering style, the collision between the 2 sides was almost inevitable. In addition to the 5 great disciples, there were some familiar faces that surprised him. Jun Dingtian was the first to bear the brunt of his attention. Speaking of which, the reason why he had such a big conflict with Boi Tianying was directly related to Jun Dingtian. Jun Dingtian had entered the Xian realm battlefield a long time ago. It was said that he had caught the eye of a big shot in the nameless Tao College and was protected by that big shot. It was said that his strength was comparable to that of the top 5 disciples. Not long ago, he made a bold statement that he wanted to challenge Teng Yaoyang, one of the top 5 disciples. Although Teng Yaoyang was in closed-door training, some people thought that Teng Yaoyang was afraid of Jun Dingtian. After all, Tung Yaoyang claimed to have received the inheritance of the gods. But how could he be compared to Jun Dingtian? Jun Dingtian was the reincarnation of a god. When the two sides were compared, it was immediately clear who was superior. However, this was remembered by Boi Tianing. He was determined to get revenge for his elder brother, which led to the subsequent battle with Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was completely caught in the crossfire. Chapter 2001. Heavenly Eagle Boy heard that Yi Shiwen had defeated Jun Dingtian before, so he wanted to prove that Jun Dingtian was nothing by defeating Yi Shiwen. Jun Dingtian was defeated by Yi Shiwen, and Yi Shiwen was defeated by him. Wasn't this enough to prove something? All kinds of rumors were naturally dispelled. Although the idea was a little naive, it was a good way to cut through the Gordian knot. The only thing he missed was that Yi Shiwen was far more powerful than he had imagined. Not only did he fail to establish his dominance, but he was also beaten half to death by Yi Shiwen. If it wasn't for Tiger Head Lord's sudden intervention, he would have been crippled of his martial arts by Yi Shiwen. It could be said that he suffered a double loss. At this time, the news of Yi Shiwen killing a peak profound death realm expert in the Fallen Moon City had already spread. Many people were dumbfounded. That was a profound death realm expert. He wasn't a roadside cabbage that could be killed casually. No wonder Yi Shiwen was able to defeat Heavenly Eagle Boy so easily. I originally thought that he was only at the late profound death realm. Now, it seems that I was gravely mistaken. How could he be a late profound death realm expert? Heavenly Eagle Boy's defeat was not an injustice. That's right. This Yi Shiwen is too shocking. He was actually able to kill an existence at the peak of the profound death stage. Even if he was an assassin, he was still in existence at the peak of the profound death stage. In this way, Yi Shiwen's strength is probably comparable to the 5 great disciples. That's right. This time, Heavenly Eagle Boy has really humiliated himself. Who do you think Jun Dingtian is? He doesn't care about anyone except the 5 great disciples. Even such a person as the reincarnation of a deity was defeated by Yi Shiwen. One can imagine how powerful Yi Shiwen is. Heavenly Eagle Boy actually wanted to defeat Yi Shiwen to prove that he was stronger than Jun Dingtian. Isn't that just asking to be humiliated? What a naive thought. In addition to Jun Dingtian, young Master Ghost Fortune was also on the list. Although he was not one of the top 5 disciples, many people were afraid of him because of his strange cultivation method and the cultivation method of devouring luck. In many people's eyes, young Master Ghost Fortune was even more famous than Jun Dingtian. The might of the Ghost Luck clan from countless years ago caused many people to tremble in fear. They were a clan cursed by the heavens, but at the same time, they were also the most favored clan by the heavens. As the only descendant of this clan, young Master Gui Yun's every move was watched by countless people. Other than young Master Gui Yun, Bai Jiansheng, and the others were also on the list. However, Yi Shiwen found it strange that Qin Lai, Yi Wudi, and the Wolf Cub were not on the list of 100 people this time. If Yi Shiwen hadn't heard the news of their deaths, he would have thought that they were already dead. Otherwise, with their strength and talent, it was impossible for them not to be among the 100 people. Jian Wuchen's words dispelled his doubts. Although the Nameless Tao College is good, not everyone will come to cultivate, especially for martial great sects. They have countless inheritances and resources. The Nameless Tao College isn't really worthy of their attention. Moreover, they might even owe the Nameless Tao College a favor. Jian Wuchen said. In fact, after so many years of hosting the Nameless Tao College, only a small number of people can enter with their own strength. The others are more or less supported by various forces. Take me, for example. Although I'm quite confident in myself, I also have the support of the Sword Realm. Also, Hua Minghan might have been chased out of the ancient Phoenix Realm, but just the fact that she has the Phoenix King behind her is enough to make her look down on her. For many people, the Nameless Tao College is their ultimate dream. It's the only way to reach immortality. However, for us, it's just a training stop. Over the years, the Nameless Tao Academy has accumulated countless favors because of this. It's truly shocking. Actually, Yi Shiwen, people like you are the ones that the Nameless Tao College is willing to nurture. Why do you think Tianjing treats you differently? Talent? No, that's not the case at all. In terms of talent, those who can enter the list of 100, or even those who have missed out on the list, or even those who have lost their lives are all peerless talents. The real reason is that you don't have a strong foundation. Or rather, be it the ancient desolate era or the true martial realm, the nameless Tao College doesn't care about those foundations. As for me and Hua Minghan, we've long been marked with all kinds of marks. Therefore, people like us will never be accepted as the core of the nameless Tao College. Of course, you're not the only one. The 5 great disciples Jun Dingtian, young Master Gui Yun, and the others are all like this. Therefore, the nameless Tao College won't interfere when you build your own team and forces. But on the other hand, if it's us, the situation will be completely different. The nameless Tao College has hosted the nameless Tao College so many times. Naturally, they won't do something free of charge. Every time it's opened, they'll spend countless resources and open up many precious classics. Naturally, they won't waste them. The most important thing is to recruit talents for themselves. Someone like you, who has extraordinary talent but also doesn't have a strong foundation, is an important target for them to recruit. Jian Wuchen said leisurely. If that's the case, which force is behind the nameless Tao College? Why haven't I heard of it? Yi Shiwen asked. About that? You'll find out in the future. Since Tianzeng didn't tell you, it means that you don't need to know now. Anyway, you'll have plenty of time to understand the nameless Tao College in the next 10 years. Jian Wuchen shook his head and said. Yi Shiwen looked at Hua Minghan again. She seemed to know something about it, but he didn't probe further. Since Jian Wuchen and Hua Minghan didn't say anything, it meant that even if they didn't know, it wouldn't affect his cultivation. However, he was secretly shocked in his heart. Be it Jian Wuchen or Hua Minghan, the worlds behind them were all famous in the heavens. Since the nameless Tao College could make these giants pay a favor to send their disciples here to cultivate, the force behind it was probably not simple. At the very least, it wasn't inferior to top-notch giants like the ancient Phoenix realm or the Sword realm. There were all kinds of connections, and there were even internal strife within the nameless Tao College. They weren't completely united. At the very least, they weren't united when it came to Yi Shiwen. The tiger-head venerable clearly wanted to make a move against him, but Tianjing just happened to be on the side that was protecting him. This created a considerable confrontation. It was obvious that be it the Heavenly Eagle Boy or Tung Yaoyang, they were both talents that the tiger-head venerable wanted to recruit or had already recruited. On the other hand, Tianjing treated Yi Shiwen differently and clearly wanted to pull him into his camp. However, Yi Shiwen didn't mind. He was like a rootless duckweed now, and the primordial human race couldn't protect him. On the contrary, they had become his targets. If Tianjing's force could support him, Yi Shiwen naturally wouldn't mind getting closer to them. This would save him a lot of trouble. For example, if Tianzeng hadn't stepped in today, he would have had a huge conflict with the tiger-head venerable. Perhaps even the ancient ancestor sect's demonic puppet would have been mobilized. If that happened, he would definitely not be able to continue cultivating in the nameless Tao College. The nameless Tao College naturally had its own foundation and reasons for being able to make all the major forces pay a favor to send their disciples there. This was an academy that nurtured gods, and the standards and curriculum in all aspects were said to be used to nurture gods. This could be seen from the fact that the Sword realm and the ancient Phoenix realm had to pay a favor to send their disciples there. Yi Shiwen was afraid that what they said was true, not to mention the Divine Union, the Heaven Wasteland Hall, and the other local forces of the mysterious world. All of them were trying their best to send their disciples to the nameless Tao College. If Yi Shiwen missed this opportunity, the gap between him and Jun Dingtian and the rest would probably widen further. When they met again in 10 years, the gap would probably be too big. Some people didn't have much of a difference in their innate talents, but the gap between them was due to the accumulation of opportunities. It seems like I really can't waste a single moment in these 10 years, Yi Shiwen lamented. But if it's just to listen to the teachings, wouldn't it be possible to send an incarnation? He originally thought that it would be imparted in the form of classes, and there would be time between classes. However, according to Hua Minghan, It would be conducted in the form of lectures. There would be no breaks for 10 years, and there would be top-notch figures invited by the nameless Tao College to give lectures. The final course even included some experiences and methods to prove one's Tao, and other things that were known to the outside world. These weren't things that could be bought with wealth, and it was impossible to buy them even if one wanted to. For such a precious sermon, even every minute and every second was very precious. Naturally, it was best not to waste a single minute or second. Yes, Hua Minghan nodded, and a smile appeared on her cold face. Smart, you really know how to draw inferences. Although it's only 10 years, time is precious for us. God knows what will happen in these 10 years. Therefore, the best way is to send an incarnation to listen to the teachings. However, the places where the teachings will be held are completely isolated, and the teachings will not be leaked to anyone else. This is to prevent people with amazing magical powers from eavesdropping on the teachings. Therefore, you can only completely listen to the teachings after merging with your incarnation. Moreover, you will need some time to merge with it. If there's really nothing else, you can go there yourself, and the effect will be better. Jian Wuchen exclaimed. Unlike the disciples of the major forces who already knew about it, Jian Wuchen was able to come up with these deductions. For him to be able to deduce so many things from one instance, he was indeed not an ordinary person. Yi Shiwen's face revealed a smile. This way, Yi Shiwen wouldn't be restricted, and at the same time, he could listen to the teachings without interruption. It could be said to be the best way. 3 days after Yi Shiwen arrived at the heaven-splitting city, the much-anticipated nameless Tao College was finally opened. Chapter 2002. In the empty space of the universe, many continents were floating in the void, constantly flashing with a different kind of light. Countless spiritual energies were locked in these continents. Who knew how many treasures of heaven and earth were buried in them to be able to nurture such a treasured land? And there were actually more than 100 such continents in the entire space. And on one of these continents, Yi Shiwen sat cross-legged in the center of a formation, his figure constantly floating up and down. An innumerable amount of Lingqi began to pour into his body unceasingly. It was simply much more than the amount of Lingqi that he had absorbed by burning his Xian core. Moreover, it was also much faster. Moreover, it was also extremely pure. The Lingqi that had been accumulated for thousands of years would all be consumed in these 10 years. So one could well imagine how rich the Lingqi would be. In fact, Yi Shiwen didn't even need to consume a tiny bit of his Xian core. Even if Yi Shiwen crazily absorbed the spiritual qi in these 10 years and cultivated nonstop, it would still be impossible for him to completely absorb the spiritual qi that had been condensed over the past 5,000 years. He opened his mouth, and suddenly, countless spiritual qi gathered in his mouth like a raging tide, like a whale sucking in water. It was majestic and spectacular. Yi Shiwen was secretly shocked. This was the place that the nameless Tao Academy had arranged for these hundreds of disciples. Just these continents alone had cost an unknown amount of wealth. No wonder Jian Wuchen had said that for these 10 years, the nameless Tao Academy had spent a lot of money. Not only had they opened up the scriptures, but they had also invited supreme experts to give lectures. No wonder all the major powers wanted to enter and cultivate there. These favors couldn't be casually owed. One day, they would have to return it. This way, there would be reciprocation. Yi Shiwen did not stop absorbing the spiritual qi in these 10 years. The amount of spiritual qi he could absorb in these 10 years was definitely an astronomical amount of wealth. The fact that the nameless Tao Academy had opened up this place was enough to show that they had indeed invested a lot. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to attract those top powers to send their proud disciples here to cultivate. He had already formed an incarnation to attend the lectures. 10 years hadn't passed yet, and Yi Shiwen didn't know what he would hear in these 10 years. He would only find out after 10 years. However, it was conceivable that when the 10 years of enlightenment were all used up, everyone's strength would have another earth-shattering improvement. At that time, it was very possible for them to directly kill their way into the Palace state. Yi Shiwen had finally stepped into the peak of the late stage after 3 months. He was crazily swallowing these spirit energies to supplement his own needs. This feeling was very refreshing. He hadn't been so unscrupulously absorbing spirit energies for a very long time. Otherwise, with his current situation, if he were to absorb freely like this, the consumption would be astronomical. He would not be able to withstand such consumption. He would have to wait until he broke into the realm of Paong and opened another floor of the demonic monarch's treasury to alleviate this demand. However, the Demon King's treasury wasn't an endless supply of resources. Back when the Demon King built the Demon King's treasury, he was still a far cry from becoming invincible and becoming the Demon King. It was no wonder that the hundreds of people who could enter the Demon King's treasury had undergone earth-shattering changes in just 10 years. Therefore, it wasn't without reason that everyone wanted to enter the Demon King's treasury to learn. After entering the late stage, he felt as if his body was like an ocean that had been completely filled. He could no longer store any more power. Even a peak profound death realm expert wouldn't be a match for him. If he wanted to improve further, he would have to break through the peak profound death realm. Once he broke through the peak profound death realm, he would have truly reached the peak of the profound death realm. He wouldn't be far from proving his Tao. If he was in the distant ancient times, he would only be half a step away from the Tao. Since he had nothing to do in these 10 years, he might as well wholeheartedly focus on cultivation. In these 10 years, he would cultivate and temper himself. After 10 years, when his incarnation returned, he would be able to integrate the martial arts experience from the lectures. He would probably be able to soar into a whole new realm. He would be one step closer to becoming an Abyss Demon Master. Just you wait. All the pores and acupoints on his body opened up and frantically absorbed the spiritual chi. If an ordinary person's physical body absorbed the spiritual chi in this way, they would have already died. However, Yi Shiwen's gilded tyrant form was different. However, before he could rest, someone had already come to visit him. It was none other than Bai Jianxing. "Brother Yi, I heard that you defeated Heavenly Eagle Boy? Impressive indeed." Bai Jianxing clicked his tongue in amazement as soon as he arrived. Previously, they had been chased by young Master Ghost Fortune all over the world and were almost forced to fight with their lives on the line. At that time, young Master Ghost Fortune was probably not as strong as the current Heavenly Eagle Boy. However, he still wasn't a match for Yi Shiwen. Moreover, it was said that Yi Shiwen had defeated Yi Shiwen with ease. This showed how powerful Yi Shiwen had become. Now that his name had spread, it was likely that no one would treat him as an ordinary late profound death realm expert. "Brother Bai, your cultivation has recovered extremely well during this period of time. I'm afraid that you are not far from breaking through to the peak of profound death realm." Yi Shiwen raised his eyebrows and glanced at Bai Jianxing. He glanced at Bai Jianxing. He was no longer in the seemingly energetic but empty state that he was in when they first met. This meant that Bai Jianxing's internal injuries had completely healed. Moreover, not only had he healed, the strength that he had accumulated over the past 1,000 years had pushed him into the late profound death realm in one go. He had jumped 2 stages in a short period of time. This was undeniably surprising. During this period of time, Yi Shiwen had only advanced from the middle profound death realm to the late profound death realm. From this, one could see how much power he had accumulated over the past thousands of years. "Haha, you have made some progress." Bai Jianxing revealed a hearty smile when he spoke about this. "Speaking of this, I have to thank Brother Yi for your help. I have also heard that if it wasn't for Brother Yi, I'm afraid that we would have died in the ruins. We wouldn't be able to chat today." "It's nothing." Yi Shiwen waved his hand and said. "On the other hand, did young Master Ghost Fortune cause any trouble for you?" "No, but if he really came, I would also like to have a fight with him," Bai Jianxing said. His eyes flickered with brilliance. Although young Master Ghost Fortune had already entered the peak profound death realm, Bai Jianxing was not afraid and was even eager to have a fight with him. He should have some trump card. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so confident. Bai Jianxing was also feeling proud and elated. Naturally, he was completely different from before. Previously, he had internal injuries and his cultivation hadn't made much progress in the past 1,000 years. It stopped at the early profound death realm. However, it was naturally different now. After his internal injuries had healed, his cultivation had rapidly broken through, and he had regained his peerless strength. He also dared to have a fight with young Master Ghost Fortune. Howell said, "If he dares to appear now, even if he doesn't find trouble with me, I will find trouble with him." Yi Shiwen sneered. It was basically impossible for him and young Master Ghost Fortune to reconcile. Back then, he was chased by young Master Ghost Fortune and almost used all his strength to fight him. Young Master Ghost Fortune was even tricked by him. Not only did he not obtain a great opportunity, but he was also seriously injured in the end. Both sides could be said to have a deep hatred for each other. There was basically no possibility of reconciliation. Forget it. Let's not talk about this. This time, I took the liberty to disturb Brother Ye's cultivation because I have a matter. I wonder if Brother Yi is interested? Bai Jianxing looked at Yi Shiwen and said, "What is it?" Yi Shiwen asked, "In the Xian realm battlefield, there is a world called the Ancestor Tree's Domain. In this Ancestor Tree's domain, there is a plant demigod called the Ancestor Tree. This Ancestor Tree has dominated the Xian realm battlefield for countless years. His lifespan is very long. In addition to his high cultivation, he slowly extended his descendants to form a world, which is the Ancestor Tree's domain." Bai Jianxing said, "Don't tell me you want me to challenge a legend realm expert." Yi Shiwen shook his head and said, although he had the ancient ancestor sect leader's demonic puppet, this did not mean that he would unscrupulously challenge a legend realm expert. That would be courting death. He still wanted to use these 10 years to refine the demonic puppet tree. However, refining it would require a huge amount of wealth. Now that there was a ready-made demonic puppet, there was no reason not to use it. If he refined it more, the power of the demonic puppet would be even stronger. Of course not. If he was still in his peak state, we wouldn't dare to challenge him. Bai Jianxing said, if their generation wanted to rise, they would need some time to settle down and pave the way. Although plant-type experts have extremely long lifespans, especially when compared to us humans, they can live for more than 1,000,000 years. Now, the Ancestor Tree is finally entering the angel decay stage. It is said that he is not far from passing away. Bai Jianxing said, among them, the Ancestor Tree's heart, condensed by the Ancestor Tree, is the target of countless people. This time, we also want to fight for it. I wonder if Brother Yi is interested? Bai Jianxing looked at Yi Shiwen and asked. Yi Shiwen secretly thought that this was not strange. Even the place where the gods fell was discovered, and people dared to covet it, let alone a mere demigod. In order to achieve immortality, everything was worth it. He looked at Yi Shiwen and asked, the biggest target this time is naturally the Ancestor Tree's heart. However, there are also many other good things. Although they are not as good as the Ancestor Tree's heart, they are still quite good. How about it, Brother Yi, are you interested in joining me? Yi Shiwen pondered for a moment. There was naturally no need to mention the benefits of closed-door training here. However, if he could snatch the Ancestor Tree's heart, he would immediately reach the great perfection with the 5 emperors. What he lacked was with attribute power. Thinking of this, he immediately said without hesitation, all right, I'll go. Chapter 2003. The only thing he lacked in the state of the 5 emperors was the power of the wood attribute. If he could gather it, the power of his 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram would be doubled. Not to mention his combat power, it would undergo an earth-shattering change. But since the heart of the ancestor is so good, I'm afraid a lot of people are eyeing it. Yi Shiwen asked. That's right. After receiving the news, many forces took action. It's not only because of the heart of the ancestor, but also because the ancestor had slaughtered the world in the past. Many top experts of the major forces, including many myth realm experts, died in his hands. This time, they're all here for revenge. Therefore, he can't escape this time. The only difference is who will get the heart of the ancestor in the end. Bai Jianxing said, where is this ancestor's domain? Yi Shiwen asked. The ancestor's domain is in a very deep place in the sealed world battlefield. It has become the ancestor's Taoist field. It is said that it was originally a place where 2 gods fought. Ordinary people can't survive in it at all. Only myth realm experts can survive in it. But after the ancestors' continuous cleaning over the years, it has become a little better. But those below the profound realm will still die without a burial. Bai Jianqing said, "All right, let's go. It's better to do it sooner rather than later." Yi Shiwen said, even if he couldn't get the heart of the ancestor in the end, there were so many descendants of the ancestor in the ancestor's domain. Killing more of them could also supplement the power of the wood attribute. When he condensed the wood emperor belt, the whole force would have another earth-shattering change. But Brother Yi, this time I have invited some experts to go with me. I hope Brother Yi won't mind. Bai Jianqing said, I can understand that the more people there are, the more hope there will be. But are they classmates from the nameless Tao Academy? Yi Shiwen asked. All the forces moved upon hearing the news. It was not easy for them to get the heart of the ancestor, but it was always better to have more people. No, the classmates from the nameless Tao Academy are probably making use of their time to cultivate. Not many of them are going out. Bai Jianqing waved his hand and said. However, this was not the main reason. Many of his classmates from the nameless Tao College were top-notch geniuses of various major forces. They were young, talented, and had boundless prospects. They were the leaders of their own forces. How could they allow Bai Jianqing to rope them in? Only Yi Shiwen, who was a loner, could do so. But there are also some top experts. Although I don't know if there are any legendary figures, it would be a waste of time for ordinary people below the profound death realm to go. Brother Yi, you haven't been here for the past few years, so you probably don't know. Bai Jianqing looked at Yi Shiwen and said. During this period of time, the opening of the nameless Tao Academy has attracted a large number of experts. Among them are many old monsters who have cultivated for countless years. Many of us are no match for these people. There are also some who are older than their age, but their strength is absolutely tyrannical. I have invited these people, and they are all core figures of the major sections. To be honest, because I have entered the nameless Tao Academy and have the support of the human race, there are still some people who want to build a relationship with me and rope me in. Otherwise, I would not have been able to find so many top experts to go with me. This time, Yunro and Yishan will also go. He could see that Yi Shiwen did not have any ill feelings towards the two of them. On the contrary, he had a good impression of them. Otherwise, he would not have helped them back then. No problem. Since the two of them had already made up their minds, they immediately left the nameless Tao Academy and headed straight for the depths of the mighty Xian realm battlefield. They only stopped when they arrived at a huge spatial fragment. They had originally agreed to meet here. If they went any further, they would reach the ancestor tree's domain. Yi Shiwen could feel the bursts of wood energy blowing on his face. It contained boundless and freshling qi. It was also mixed in with the wood energy. Taking a deep breath of it gave him a feeling of spiritual opening. However, Yi Shiwen also felt that there were some very ferocious auras lurking within. It seemed that there was a very powerful existence lurking within. His eyesight was amazing. With a single glance, he could see hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. There were many plants that looked like ordinary plants, but in fact, they were all plants of great power. Many of them had cultivation in the Xian realm and looked very impressive. It was said that the ancestor tree had been operating for hundreds of thousands of years. It was likely that it had really grown. The entire ancestor tree's domain was very big. Even with Yi Shiwen's eyesight, he could not see through it completely. It seemed to be covered by some formation fog, so he could not see anything at all. However, it seemed that many people had already rushed over to search for all kinds of treasures. Many plants were treasures themselves, and their spiritual roots were extraordinary. Although some people were able to find them, most of them had been devoured by the descendants of the ancestor tree. These were all man-eating plants. At this moment, Yishan was the first to rush over. Bai Jianqing could enter the nameless Tao Academy to cultivate, but they were not qualified. They could only wander around the periphery. At this moment, they rushed over from all directions. Big Brother Yi. Yishan could not help but smile in surprise when he saw Yi Shiwen. He already knew that Yi Shiwen was from the Yi family of the ancient desolate Qi Mountain. During this period, the Heaven Desolate Palace and the Divine Union had been hunting for Yi Shiwen. The fact that Yi Shiwen was from the Yi family of the ancient Desolate Qi Mountain was no longer a secret. Almost everyone knew about it. Although most people did not know what kind of existence the Yi family of the ancient Desolate Qi Mountain was, this did not mean that the human race did not know. In particular, the Yi family had set off a huge reaction. Although they had been separated for many years, they were still of the same clan. Therefore, they were naturally very close to each other. Especially the Yi family. They were even more surprised. A true dragon actually appeared in the Yi family of Mount Qi and came to the Xian world. They naturally knew how deep the water in the Xian world was and how many top-notch experts there were. In the ancient desolation, they could be regarded as experts, but in the Xian world, they could only be regarded as ordinary. The human race was not very powerful in the mysterious world. In the entire ancient desolate realm, there was only one legendary figure who was about to die. This in itself was already very clear about some things. The human race could be said to be out of breath because of the demon race. At this time, Yi Shiwen had suddenly descended from the sky. They were both from the human race and also from the ancient desolate realm. This naturally gave them a close relationship. Furthermore, he was a descendant of the great Yi family, so this relationship had taken a step further. If it had not been for some people secretly causing trouble and obstructing him, someone would have already come to find Yi Shiwen and let him at least take a look. To a large extent, this was due to the deterrent power of the Divine Union and the Heaven Desolate Palace. These two behemoths were still too terrifying for the current human race, and they could destroy them at any time. The human race only had one mythological expert who was about to die, but the Heaven Desolate Palace and the Divine Union had more than one mythological expert. The disparity between the foundations of the two parties was obvious. Therefore, many people were very hesitant. If the two parties were to vent their anger on them because of Yi Shiwen, the consequences would be obvious. Almost all of them would be annihilated. What would they do then? They would be annihilated by the two great forces before the demon race could annihilate them. However, everything changed after Yi Shiwen entered the Nameless Dao College. They were very clear about everything about the Nameless Dao College. It was a place that even the Divine Union and the Heaven Desolate Palace had to be wary of. Everything would naturally be different with the support of this identity. Furthermore, they also wanted to befriend Yi Shiwen. Disciples who could enter the Nameless Dao College would almost certainly enter the realm of mythological figures as long as their development did not come to a premature end. Originally, they had placed their hopes on by Jianxing. Now that there was another one, it was naturally even better. The more mythological experts there were in the human race, the more stable the human race would be. Yi Shan did not think too much about it. No matter what, he had a good relationship with Yi Shiwen. Furthermore, he had heard that they were from the same clan. Big brother Yi, are you also from the Yi clan? Yi Shan asked. Yes, I am. Yi Shiwen nodded and smiled. Bai Jianxing looked at Yi Shiwen in surprise. He had not expected Yi Shiwen to be from the same clan as him from the ancient desolate realm. The ancient desolate realm was a very distant term for the current human race. Apart from clansmen coming to the mysterious world from time to time, there were very few who returned. Especially for someone like Yi Shiwen, who was born and raised in the mysterious world, there was no such thing as sentiments. Sure enough, the ancient desolate realm, Mount Qi, I have only heard of them. I have never seen them before. Yi Shan had a fascinated look on his face. For humans like them, this was almost equivalent to their ancestral land. Even though the cultivation of the clansmen in the ancestral land was far lower than theirs, there was still a special meaning to it. Big brother Yi, you must call me when you go back. I also want to go back and take a look. Yes, don't worry, I will definitely call you, Yi Shiwen said with a smile. Didn't he come to the mysterious world to find a few more mysterious realm experts to go back and support them? After coming to the mysterious world, his knowledge had broadened. Only now did he realize how ridiculous his original idea was. Suddenly, another burst of laughter was heard. It was Yunro who came directly on the light. Beside her, there was a man in a luxurious robe. The man's light was extremely domineering, shattering everything. Like the sea, He directly descended and arrived in front of everyone. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.